Chapter 299. Chu Xiu looked at LV Tong and shook his head. I'm not threatening you. I'm a traitor of the Blue Dragon Society. If I go to the Blue Dragon Society and expose you, wouldn't I be looking for trouble? I just want to tell you a secret. A secret that you've done before, a secret that even you don't know about. A secret about your brother, Qing Buhui. LV Tong didn't want to talk nonsense with Chu Xiu. His hand was already on his sword. However, when he heard that this matter was related to his brother, LV Tong unconsciously let go of his sword. He said coldly, "Don't try to be mysterious." "What are you trying to say?" Chu Xiu said slowly, "I'm also an assassin of the Blue Dragon Society. I know what an assassin from the Blue Dragon Society is like. Apart from killing people, it's all about cultivation. It's like a knife without any emotions. You've been a member of the Azure Dragon Society longer than I have. Perhaps you've killed more people than you can count. But do you know that one of the people you've killed was the father of your brother?" LV Tong couldn't help but tremble. He said in a low voice, "Nonsense. I was only at the inner aura stage when I betrayed the Blue Dragon Society. How could I kill my brother's father?" Chu Xiu said indifferently, "It's true that Qing Buhui is very strong, but who says that a father has to be stronger than his son? All these years, have you ever heard Qing Buhui talk about his background? Not even once, right? Because this is something that hurts him. Qing Buhui was born in the Songyang prefecture of Eastern Qi's Songyang prefecture's hegemon sword villa. Although the name sounds domineering, it's actually just a small villa with a few dozen people. The villa master, Qing Nanhai, is only at the inner aura stage. When you received the mission to kill Qing Nanhai, Qing Buhui was roaming the world. He was Qing Nanhai's only son, and he was also the most talented disciple in the hegemon sword villa over the years. Qing Nanhai couldn't bear to let him waste his life in the hegemon sword villa, so he let him roam the world. In the end, by the time Qing Buhui returned to the hegemon sword villa, you and the other assassins had already exterminated the hegemon sword villa. It was because of this that Qing Buji was motivated to uphold justice and eliminate injustice in the world. TSK, now that I thought about it, I was starting to admire Qing Buji. If it was anyone else who encountered such a situation, they would have fallen into a demon's dark side. If they were lucky, they would have walked the path of revenge. In the end, Qing Buhui didn't want others to follow in his footsteps. Instead, he became a chivalrous person. His state of mind was truly admirable. However, the problem was that Qing Buhui didn't know who killed his entire family. He didn't have the ability to find that person. Now that the enemy was right in front of him, what do you think Qing Buhui would do if he found out about this? You were the one who personally killed Qing Nanhai when the hegemon sword villa was destroyed. Do you think Qing Buhui would let you go out of consideration for his brotherhood and cut all ties with you? Or would he kill you? A ridiculing smile appeared on Chu Xiu's face. His figure faded away, leaving behind an expressionless LV Tong, who was standing there expressionlessly, but his heart was in turmoil. The hardest thing to understand in this world was the human heart, and the easiest thing to use was also the human heart. It was extremely easy to kill with a knife, but killing with one's heart was even crueler, even though there wouldn't be blood. The Jiangdong's 5 heroes actually didn't have much enmity with Chu Xiu, but it was a pity that they were stubborn and blocked Chu Xiu's path. Hence, Chu Xiu had no choice but to use all means to get rid of them. If he wanted to blame someone, he could only blame Qiu Dongmao. If Qiu Dongmao hadn't used the 5 of them, they wouldn't be standing on the opposite side now. However, Chu Xiu's personality had always been like this. It was fine if he didn't make a move, but once he did, he would do it to the extreme. Although the Jiangdong's 5 heroes were a group, each of them had their own thoughts and mental flaws. Chu Xiu had already planted flaws in the hearts of 3 of them, and he was only missing one person. However, this person wasn't Qing Buhui, but Lu Qingqing. In fact, Chu Xiu really admired Qing Buhui. He was a true chivalrous person. His family was destroyed, but he didn't lose his sight because of hatred. Instead, he chose to devote himself to Jianghu to serve justice and fulfill his lifelong wish. It could be said that among the 5 of them, only he could be called a true chivalrous person. Dong Xiangyi's chivalrous actions were full of utilitarianism, but LV Tong didn't have any chivalrous intentions in his heart. He just wanted to repay a debt of gratitude. If Qing Buhui asked him to be chivalrous, he would do it. If Qing Buhui asked him to become a demon and kill people, he would do the same. As for Wu Tiandong, he was impulsive and childish. He became sworn brothers with Qing Buhui and the others because he yearned for the so-called chivalrous Jianghu. If he had encountered bandits in the early days, he might have also become a ruthless killer. As for Lu Qingqing, she was just a woman. She didn't have great ambitions, but she was unwilling to submit to fate. Everything she did was just blindly following orders. Therefore, whether it was now or in the original plot, Qing Buhui could be called a true chivalrous person. A true chivalrous person with no flaws in his mental state could be compared to Chu Kuanga. Unfortunately, if one wanted to be a true chivalrous person in Jianghu, chivalrous heart was actually secondary. Now that Qiu Zhenxing is dead, even if the Pegasus farm chooses a new owner, it will not be Qiu Dongmao. Therefore, this person is actually already considered useless. It is already very good that he can guarantee a high position and wealth in his next life. Why do you have to work so hard? Lu Qingqing frowned, but in the end, she did not attack Chu Xiu. This was because Chu Xiu's words had indeed hit the nail on the head. After wandering the martial world with Qing Buhui for so long, Lu Qingqing was still a little tired. After all, she was a woman and did not have as strong a conviction as a man like Qing Buhui. From her behavior, it could be seen that Lu Qingqing wanted to marry a strong man, a man who could give her a sense of security so that she would not have to wander around. At first, this person was Qing Buhui, but then it became Dong Xiangyi. Of course, LV Tong should be an exception. Now Wu Tiandong was pursuing her, but Wu Tiandong was not as good as Qing Buhui and Dong Xiangyi in all aspects except for sincerely treating her well. Therefore, Lu Qingqing was a little resistant and had not yet agreed to Wu Tiandong's request. This time, when she escorted Qiu Dongmao, it really made her think that she could be recruited by the crown prince. However, she did not dare to tell others. Qing Buhui hated being someone else's lackey. Even if this person was the crown prince, Dong Xiangyi did not want to submit to others. LV Tong, on the other hand, only followed Qing Buhui. He would do whatever Qing Buhui asked him to do. Therefore, Lu Qingqing told this matter to Wu Tiandong. Unfortunately, Wu Tiandong was a guy who did not have any far-reaching ideas. He only knew how to follow what others said. He had to listen to Qing Buhui on this kind of matter. Looking at Lu Qingqing's expression, Chu Xiu knew that he was right. This was because Lu Qingqing was such a person in the original plot. In the end, Chu Xiu said indifferently, "I'm trying to sow discord and recruit you. You can't rely on the crown prince, but I can introduce you to the second prince of Eastern Qi. Although this prince is not as prominent as the crown prince, he is more capable and famous than the crown prince. You don't have to be in a hurry to answer me now. I have no grudge against the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, so I will give you some time. This is also the last chance. I hope you can grasp it." After saying that, Chu Xiu immediately left. Lu Qingqing, who was still standing there, even forgot that she had to go to the bathroom. Her expression kept changing, and it was only when Wu Tiandong shouted at her that Lu Qingqing realized what she was going to do. Chapter 300. Qing Buhui leaned against a tree and wiped the heavy sword in his hand. This heavy sword was an heirloom of the Hegemon sword villa and was called Light Mountain. It was also the only 5th transformation precious weapon in the Hegemon sword villa. When he went out to roam the Jianghu, his father gave this sword to him and asked him to roam the Jianghu with it. Later on, when Qing Buhui exterminated a Jianghu villain, he found a piece of Xianyuan heavy iron. This thing had no other use other than being hard and heavy. A piece the size of a fingernail weighed a few kilograms. Qing Buhui found a master refiner to integrate this piece of Xianyuan heavy iron into Light Mountain, turning it from a 5th transformation precious weapon to a 6th transformation precious weapon. This sword had accompanied him since he was young. Although the hegemon sword villa was gone and his father had died, as long as Qin Yu was around, he felt that these people were still alive, watching him carry out chivalrous deeds, fulfilling the ideals and revenge that he had in the past. After wiping the sword in his hand, Qing Buhui looked at the sky. Although the thick fog in the forest was a little thick, it was already slightly bright. He was just about to call for everyone to set off. After a few more days of walking, they would be able to reach Black Glazed City. However, looking at everyone's condition, Qing Buhui frowned slightly. He was actually not a very meticulous person, but rather a little rough. However, being rough was not the same as being stupid. He could clearly feel that something was wrong with everyone during this period of time. Each of them seemed to be preoccupied and absent-minded. It was fine if others were like this, but his second brother, Dong Xiangyi, had always been very thoughtful and did not like to communicate with others. Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingxing were not always together, so it was possible for them to quarrel. However, LV Tong had always been cold and indifferent all these years. No matter what happened, he was always calm as if his heart was as still as water. He had not changed at all over the years. But now, LV Tong always showed a look of wanting to say something to him, as if he had something to ask him. However, LV Tong did not open his mouth every time. Qing Buhui was considerate and asked back, but LV Tong always said that he was fine. This strange atmosphere made Qing Buhui very uncomfortable. He tied the heavy sword behind him again and sighed. Recently, he had been feeling a little uneasy. He had seen Chu Xiu's behavior in the inn. He was definitely the kind of person who would not give up until he achieved his goal. However, several days had passed, and Chu Xiu still hadn't shown up. It was as if what he had said to them in the inn was just to save his face. This was very abnormal. Qing Buhui had heard a little about Chu Xiu's character. After all, he was already in the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard, and had some fame in the northern Yan and eastern Qi regions. From the description on the Longhu leaderboard, it was not difficult to see that Chu Xiu was a resolute and decisive person. However, his negative side was that he had changed a lot. He was a ruthless and cruel person. When he was an assassin in the Blue Dragon Society, his hands were already stained with blood. Later on, when he joined the Guanzhong torture room, he also killed many people in the Guanzhong region. Moreover, during the God Weapon Conference, he killed without any scruples. Those who fell into his hands were either dead or crippled. Only Yan Tingting was safe and sound. However, that was also because the Jixia Martial Arts Academy's Grand Chancellor, Xiao Baiyu, had intervened and saved Yan Tingting's life. Otherwise, it would have been difficult for her to escape death. Qing Buhui did not believe that such a person would leave after just one exchange of blows with them after saying those harsh words. Therefore, the more time passed, the more anxious he became. Qing Buhui even hoped that Chu Xiu would sneak attack them along the way and try his best to kill Qiu Dongmao. That would be normal. After letting out a long sigh, Qing Buhui cleared his mind. Recently, he seemed to be a little paranoid. After all, Chu Xiu was a member of the Guanzhong torture room. If he received news from the Guanzhong torture room halfway, he might have something urgent to deal with. Therefore, it was normal that he would not be able to kill them in time. Therefore, Qing Buhui said, "Pack your things. We are leaving. We will reach Black Glaze City in a few days. When we get there, we will rest for a while. Second brother, you can also take a good bath." Qing Buhui's joke did not make Dong Xiangyi laugh. He only twitched the corner of his mouth and forced himself to deal with it. Just as Qing Buhui was about to say something, a black figure walked out from the fog and said in a mocking tone, "Great hero Cheng, I've said it before in the inn. This matter isn't over yet. The real show hasn't begun. Black Stained City, you won't be able to reach it in this lifetime." Seeing Chu Xiu's figure, Qing Buji's expression changed. He pulled out the heavy sword on his back and said coldly, "Chu Xiu, it seems like you've run out of patience. You haven't fought a single time during this period of time, so you should know that you can't defeat the 5 of us by yourself. There's no point in forcing a battle. Stop. A strange expression appeared on Chu Xiu's face. He said, "The five of us? Hero Cheng, you treat them as brothers, but I'm afraid they do not want to be brothers with you. Are you curious why I did not fight all this time? Actually, I did. If you don't believe me, you can ask your brothers and sisters. Which one of them has not seen me before? Also, someone has promised to be my spy in the dark, because I can give him far more than you, the big brother. Do you believe me?" As soon as he said that, Cheng Buhui subconsciously turned his head to look at the other four people. Their expressions changed as well. Cheng Buhui's heart sank when he saw this. "Is what Chu Xiu said true?" Cheng Buhui asked in a low voice. Without waiting for a few people to speak, Chu Xiu smiled and said, "Everyone, you'd better not lie. Otherwise, I don't mind repeating what I've said to you all before to everyone again. I gave you a chance, and this is your last chance. Hand over Qiu Dongmao, and you will still be the 5 heroes of River East. Otherwise, you should know what awaits you. Don't forget, one of you already has my men. I may not be able to defeat 5 of you, but what about 2 of you? The person hiding in the dark is even more lethal than me." Chu Xiu's words caused the expressions of the 4 people present to change. They did not know what Chu Xiu had said to the others, but they knew that Chu Xiu had grasped their deepest secrets. Only God knew where Chu Xiu had found out about them. They all thought that they would not agree to be Chu Xiu's spy, but what about the others? Dong Xianyi was utilitarian, so he thought that the others were also utilitarian. If Chu Xiu tempted them with benefits, would the others agree? LV Tong felt guilty towards Cheng Buhui, so he thought that the others also had all kinds of dark secrets. If Chu Xiu used this as a threat, he would rather die than compromise. Did the others have the same thoughts? There was also Wu Tiandong. The others had relationships with Lu Qingqing, but they had hidden it from him. This had already made Wu Tiandong resentful, but he did not want to lose Lu Qingqing, so he had kept it to himself. Among them, Lu Qingqing had the most complicated feelings. Previously, Chu Xiu had tempted her with the second prince to make her think about it. In the end, before she had even thought about it, Chu Xiu said that someone had already agreed. Who was this person? So should she agree or not? The 4 people all had complicated and suspicious expressions on their faces, and did not speak. Seeing this scene, Cheng Buhui's eyes revealed a look of disbelief. The brothers and sisters who had been friends with him for several years, or even 10 years, had actually met with Chu Xiu behind his back and had a secret discussion. Moreover, one of them had even become a spy. This was something that Cheng Buhui did not dare to believe and was unwilling to believe. However, the expressions of these people indicated that Chu Xiu was not lying. Chu Xiu stretched out a finger and shook it. "I've said it before, there's only one chance. Qiu Dongmao, are you going to hand it over or not?" Qiu Dongmao hid behind the 5 people, and his expression was extremely terrified. He never thought that Chu Xiu would play such a trick and use so many tricks in secret to forcibly split the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Although they were all standing together now, it was inevitable that they would split up. Other than Cheng Buhui, the other 4 people were secretly guessing who had agreed to Chu Xiu's conditions and become his spy. Only Cheng Buhui did not suspect them. It was not that he really believed these 4 people, but he did not dare to suspect them. If he, the big brother, questioned the others, then the 5 heroes of Jiangdong would really be finished. Cheng Buhui closed his eyes and only opened them after a while. His eyes were shining with determination. "Qiu Dongmao is my benefactor's son. Since we've agreed to send him to Glazed Ink City, we won't hand him over. Moreover, I don't believe that my sworn brother would betray me. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong have been one body since the day they became sworn brothers, and it's still the same now." Chu Xiu shook his head. "I've given you a chance, but you didn't grasp it. Don't blame me for what happens next." As soon as he finished speaking, the demonic aura around Chu Xiu skyrocketed. The dense demonic aura on the heavenly demon dance condensed into a blurry silhouette of a demon god. As Chu Xiu slashed out with his saber, an extreme demonic aura exploded. However, within this demonic aura, there was a hint of divinity. The devil's saber of Avicii would fall forever. As soon as he made his move, Chu Xiu slashed out with the last strike of the 3 sabers of Avicii. It was a demonic saber that could be described as the ultimate judgment of purgatory. The pure demonic aura could even affect the opponent's mind. Qing Buhui's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness. Among them, he was the strongest and had the most experience in battle. He had even fought against experts in the oneness of heaven and man realm. However, Chu Xiu's saber still gave him a strong sense of pressure, causing his expression to change. Qing Buhui held his light sword in his hand and raised it as if it was 1,000 caddies. The earth energy in his body was restrained, and when the sword fell, it suppressed the mountain and filled the sea. Chapter 301. The backlash from the 3 strokes of Avicii was too great. With Chu Xiu's current strength, he could basically use the first 2 strokes to his heart's content. However, the last stroke would still cause a considerable backlash. The powerful demonic saber collided with Qing Buhui's heavy sword, and a shocking power instantly erupted. The earth energy fluctuations even made weaker martial artists like Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing shudder with fear. Under the collision, the ground beneath Chu Xiu and Qing Buhui's feet was filled with holes and cracks from the impact of the earth energy, but neither of them retreated. Looking at Chu Xiu, Qing Buhui's eyes revealed a hint of seriousness. Chu Xiu's strength was far greater than he had imagined. His martial path focused on strength, and those of the same level who could withstand a blow from his heavy sword could be counted on one hand. However, not only had Chu Xiu managed to block it, but he could even rely on pure strength to clash head-on with him. This was already shocking enough. Moreover, looking at Chu Xiu's martial path, it was obvious that he did not rely on brute force. Qing Buhui raised his heavy sword, and after a series of slashes, the powerful might made people shudder with fear. However, Chu Xiu relied on the strength of his 3 strokes of Avicii and the powerful explosive power of the fast and slow 9 words formula to temporarily fight evenly with Qing Buhui. Dong Xiangyi and the others frowned and simultaneously attacked Chu Xiu. Fighting 5 against 1, although they managed to suppress Chu Xiu in an instant, the more they fought, the more they felt that something was wrong. Originally, the 5 of them had joined forces to roam the pugilistic world, and their tacit understanding between each other was very high. However, now their attacks were very awkward. Qing Buhui had just sent Chu Xiu flying with his sword, and Dong Xiangyi and LV Tong, who were the most lethal, should have joined forces to receive Qing Buhui's attack. However, the 2 of them had held back when they attacked, guarding against each other, and even using their mental power to guard against Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing behind them. Because of this, the rhythm of the 2 of them was not right. It was not even as good as when the 2 of them had attacked Chu Xiu in the inn. Now, the 2 of them had been caught by Chu Xiu, and he directly used the Wisdom Fist seal to seal the space. The Devil Blade of Avicii blasted out continuously, forcing the 2 of them to retreat. Originally, Qing Buhui could be evenly matched with Chu Xiu in a one-on-one fight. However, now that the 5 of them had attacked together, they were forced into a corner by Chu Xiu. The reason was that suspicion and cracks had actually appeared among the 5 of them. To be precise, 4 of them did not trust each other. Qing Buhui, on the other hand, had the courage to trust the others. He believed that his sworn brother would not secretly attack him, but the others did not have the courage to believe that there was no one who would seek refuge with Chu Xiu. After all, the things that Chu Xiu had said to them had already shaken their state of mind. Now that Chu Xiu had said these words, no one could be sure whether anyone had agreed to be a mole for Chu Xiu. Therefore, if someone really became a mole for Chu Xiu and betrayed them by launching a sneak attack while they were fighting fiercely, they would almost certainly die. No one was willing to gamble with their lives. Dong Xiangyi and the other 3 were the same. The 5 of them worked together to besiege Chu Xiu, but the more they fought, the more aggrieved they became. The more they fought, the more their hands and feet were tied. This made Qing Buhui frown immediately. He shouted in a low voice, "The 4 of you, take young Master Chiu and escape first. I'll cover the rear. Dong Xianyi and the other three looked at each other. They had no choice but to take Xiu Dongmao and leave. Chu Xiu forced Qingbuhui to retreat with a sinister slash filled with demonic qi. He smiled and said, Qingbuhui, aren't you afraid that the mole I left among the four of them will attack and kill Xiu Dongmao? Alone and with his sword, Qingbuhui exploded with even more power than before. He even had a trace of an aura that was strong enough to fight against Chu Xiu head-on. Mole? I don't believe it. Among my sworn brothers, no one is a mole, and no one will betray our former beliefs. Qingbuhui's tone was firm. He was not affected by Chu Xiu at all. The light sword in his hand was extremely steady. No matter how strong Chu Xiu's blade aura and demonic qi were, they could not break through his defense. Chu Xiu's face revealed a trace of mockery. Great hero Cheng, you're really magnanimous. You're right to believe them. Even in the hearts of the other four, only you, great hero Cheng, can be trusted unconditionally. Unfortunately, the four of them can't trust each other to the same degree as you. Qingbuhui's expression changed. To him, he could trust the others, and the others could trust him. But what about the others? Even Qingbuhui did not dare to guarantee this with 100% certainty. However, Qingbuhui did not have the time to think so much. He held the light sword in his hand, pushed all the distracting thoughts to the back of his mind, and fought with Chu Xiu with all his might. Chu Xiu was not in a hurry. The best part was yet to come. The secrets and grudges of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were enough to make them break up completely. At this time, there was no need for Chu Xiu to fight them head-on. He only needed to add fuel to the fire. On the other side, Dong Xianyi and the others also left with Xiu Dongmao. However, after running for more than 10 miles, Lu Tong stopped and said, "You guys leave first. I'll go help Big Brother." To Lu Tong, the reputation of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong was not important. Even Xiu Dongmao was not important. Only Qingbuhui was important. Although Qingbuhui could actually fight evenly with Chu Xiu alone, Lu Tong was still worried about Qingbuhui and wanted to go back to help him. However, at this time, Wu Tiandong frowned and said, "Third brother, Big Brother is completely capable of stopping Chu Xiu. Why are you going back? Do you have an ulterior motive?" Wu Tiandong's words were explosive. He almost said that Lu Tong was a mole, and that he was going back to kill him instead of helping Qingbuhui. If it was in the past, Wu Tiandong would never say such a thing. However, when he thought about how Lu Tong had a relationship with Lu Qingqing, and that Lu Qingqing was the one who initiated it, Wu Tiandong felt as if he had eaten a fly. He could not help but feel a trace of disgust towards Lu Tong. Moreover, Lu Tong did not have a good relationship with the others. After all, in his heart, only Qingbuhui was the most important. Even the so-called 5 heroes of Jiangdong were not important. Therefore, Lu Tong was cold most of the time. He did not speak much, and he was not very close to the others. Under normal circumstances, this kind of thing would not show. However, at this time, it was as if these things had been suppressed for a long time, and they suddenly erupted. Lu Tong, who was about to leave, turned around and looked straight at Wu Tiandong. He said coldly, "What do you mean? Are you saying that I'm a mole?" Wu Tiandong snorted coldly. "I didn't say that. You said it yourself." A murderous look appeared in Lu Tong's eyes. Qingbuhui was his reverse scale. Other people could say anything about him, but they could never question his loyalty to Qingbuhui. A blood-red blade appeared in Lu Tong's hand, and the blood avoidance sword was already placed on Wu Tiandong's neck. He said coldly, "If you talk nonsense again, I'll kill you." Lu Qingqing hurriedly said, "Third brother. What are you doing? Put down the sword." Dong Xianyi, who was standing aside, quickly said, "Third brother. Stop fooling around. This is not the time to fool around." Lu Tong said coldly, "I'm not fooling around. You should know what exactly is going on." What did Chu Xiu get on you that made you choose to be his mole? Dong Xiangyi, if it weren't for Big Brother, how could a down-and-out child like you have such a reputation now? But you're always provoking Big Brother's authority. If it weren't for your age, and Big Brother asked the 5 of us to become sworn brothers, do you think you're qualified to be my second brother? Don't think that I don't know what you're scheming. You're the most likely person to be the mole. Dong Xiangyi's expression changed. He snorted coldly and said, "Third brother, are you crazy? Why are you biting me? If I were a mole, I would have taken action just now. How could I have joined forces with you to besiege Chu Xiu?" Lu Tong ignored him. Instead, he stared at Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingxing and said coldly, "And you too, if it weren't for Big Brother, one of you would just be a fledgling rogue cultivator in Jianghu, and the other would have been sacrificed to marry a good-for-nothing. Now you've betrayed Big Brother and are ungrateful. Even if Big Brother forgives you, my sword will not spare you." There was no fear on Wu Tiandong's face. Instead, he took a step forward and said coldly, "Kill me if you can. Now you're talking as if you're a good person. Why didn't you stand up and refute Chu Xiu's words just now? Do you dare to say that you've never done anything to disappoint Big Brother and everyone else?" Although Wu Tiandong didn't know what Chu Xiu had said to him, it seemed that everyone had their own secrets that they didn't want to reveal. Everyone was the same. How noble could Wu Tiandong be? What right did he have to criticize others? At the moment, the 4 of them had their own thoughts. It could be said that the brotherly relationship in the past had been completely torn apart. They were all full of contradictions and distrust. Moreover, Qing Buhui was not here at the moment, so no one could suppress them at all. Qiu Dongmao, who was behind them, wanted to dissuade them, but unfortunately, he didn't say anything in the end. Qiu Dongmao was a man with good judgment. At the moment, the 5 heroes of River East were full of hostility. They had simply changed from brothers to enemies. What could he do? If he spoke rashly, it was very likely that even he would be implicated. Qiu Dongmao could also see that among the 5 heroes of River East, only Qing Buhui really wanted to repay his kindness and send him to Black Glaze City. But now that Qing Buhui was not here, it was better for him to keep a low profile for the time being. Everyone looks like Chu Xiu's spy, but he refuses to say what he said to Chu Xiu. LV Tong closed his eyes and said in a low voice, "Big Brother, I will never betray you, but we can't let the others live. They have other intentions. Chu Xiu's spy could be 1 or 3. Wu Tiandong snorted. "What makes you say that you won't betray Big Brother? If you have the ability, then say it on the spot. What exactly did Chu Xiu say to you to make you so afraid?" LV Tong clenched his teeth and did not speak. He would not betray Qing Buhui, but he really did not dare to say what Chu Xiu told him. At this moment, Chu Xiu's voice came from behind. "I can testify to this. LV Tong did not betray Qing Buhui, and he is not my spy. It's because he feels guilty towards you, great hero Cheng." LV Tong's eyes widened. He pointed his sword at Chu Xiu and shouted, "Shut up." The corners of Chu Xiu's mouth curled into a smile, but in LV Tong's eyes, that smile was extremely evil. "Great hero Cheng, the people who did the extermination of the Hegemon Sword Villa were from the Blue Dragon Society. As for the person who instigated the Blue Dragon Society, you have not been able to find out. However, the person who killed your father is right in front of you. Your third brother is an assassin from the Blue Dragon Society. The person who beheaded your father, Qing Nanhai, was LV Tong." As soon as he said that, everyone present was stunned. This news was really explosive, so much so that no one present could react. The person who had been a brother for 10 years actually became the person who killed his father in the blink of an eye. This change stunned Qing Buhui, and his eyes revealed a look of disbelief. Is what Chu Xiu said true? Qing Buhui looked at LV Tong and asked in a hoarse voice. LV Tong's eyes revealed a look of pain. He wanted to deny it, but in the end, he still nodded. At this moment, Wu Tiandong suddenly said, "Just now, you said that we were all spies, but in the end, you became the murderer who killed Big Brother's father. Do you still want to kill Big Brother now?" "Shut up!" LV Tong shouted, and there was a trace of killing intent in his eyes as he looked at Wu Tiandong. Chu Xiu clapped his hands and said, "Don't mind him. It's normal for your fourth brother to be angry. He pursued a woman for so many years, but in the end, she had an affair with all of you. Everyone in the Jiangdong 5 heroes knows about this, except for him. When did any of you ever treat him as a brother? It's normal for him to harbor resentment." Lu Qingqing's face immediately revealed a look of shame and indignation. She was a woman after all, and she had taken the initiative to do those things in the past. However, knowing it herself and having it revealed to Chu Xiu were two completely different concepts. Wu Tiandong's face was red, and his eyes revealed a trace of humiliation and hatred. When Chu Xiu didn't say it before, he could still play dumb. However, now that Chu Xiu had revealed everything, he couldn't even play dumb anymore. When he thought of how he used to flatter Lu Qingqing and how the other three had seen it, he was probably no different from an idiot in their hearts. The more Wu Tiandong thought about it, the angrier he became. He pointed at Qing Buhui and said sternly, "Big brother, I've respected you as a father all these years. When I was pursuing fifth sister, if you said she was your woman, how could I have any improper thoughts about her? In the end, all of you knew, but none of you said it. In your eyes, do you still treat me, Wu Tiandong, as a brother? Do you all think I'm an idiot?" Qing Buhui's expression changed slightly. In fact, he really hadn't thought about it that way. In his opinion, what happened in the past was a misunderstanding. People in the pugilistic world didn't care about trifles, and he had never thought about marrying Lu Qingqing. Later, Wu Tiandong fell in love with Lu Qingqing. Could he really tell Wu Tiandong that Lu Qingqing was his woman, and also Dong Xiangyi and LV Tong's woman? If that was the case, the 5 of them would have broken up long ago. For Dong Xiangyi and LV Tong, they didn't say it because they didn't care about it at all. It was that simple. And you, Lu Qingqing, am I no different from an idiot in your eyes? Wu Tiandong pointed at Lu Qingqing and shouted. One had to know that he had never raised his voice to Lu Qingqing before. A trace of anger appeared on Lu Qingqing's face. In fact, she really didn't care about Wu Tiandong from the beginning, including Wu Tiandong's confession of love. She actually rejected it. After all, compared to Qing Buhui and Dong Xiangyi, the gap between Wu Tiandong and them was too big. She subconsciously resisted it. Later, when Lu Qingqing realized that it was really impossible for her to be with Qing Buhui and Dong Xiangyi, she began to try to accept Wu Tiandong. In the end, such a thing happened. But she didn't think that she had wronged Wu Tiandong, because until now, she hadn't promised him anything. Dong Xiangyi frowned and said, "Fourth brother, love between a man and a woman is just a small matter. Are you going to fall out with Big Brother and us because of this small matter?" Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That's right. Love between a man and a woman is just a small matter. Fighting for power is a big matter. Dong Xiangyi, I told you before that you want to make a name for yourself with the help of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong and then return to the Jailing Dong family openly. But as long as Qing Buhui is alive, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong will always be synonymous with Qing Buhui. You, Dong Xiangyi, are just one of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong and will never be able to stand out. Why don't you join forces with me now? I'll help you get rid of Qing Buhui and the others, and I'll bear the blame for you. From now on, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong will respect you, and the reputation that Qing Buhui and the others left behind will all belong to you." Seeing that Qing Buhui and the others were looking at him, Dong Xiangyi shouted, "Nonsense. When did I want to fight for power with Big Brother? With the 5 of us, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong will be the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Without Big Brother, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong will really be gone." Among the people present, Dong Xiangyi was actually the least afraid of Chu Xiu, because Chu Xiu had indeed said what he was thinking. That was true, but it was also just his thought, and there was no direct evidence, so he could completely deny it. In fact, when he denied it, Dong Xianyi was really tempted for a moment, but it was only for a moment before he completely extinguished it. Humans were not plants, so how could they be emotionless? Dong Xianyi was indeed a little utilitarian, including his so-called chivalrous deeds. But after all, he had been sworn brothers with Qing Buhui for so many years, and he knew what kind of person Qing Buhui was. No matter how utilitarian he was, he could not join forces with Chu Xiu to kill his former big brother, even if he really wanted the reputation that Qing Buhui had. However, at this time, Qing Buhui and the others looked at Dong Xianyi with a somewhat complicated gaze. No one was an idiot. They all knew that Dong Xianyi used to be very calculative and utilitarian, but they did not expect that Dong Xianyi would want so many things. At this time, when Chu Xiu said all these, Qing Buhui and the others thought of the little things that Dong Xianyi used to get along with them. Indeed, sometimes Dong Xianyi would steal Qing Buhui's limelight, but at that time, they did not care. Because Qing Buhui did not care about fame, the others did not say anything, but now it seemed that Dong Xianyi had some other intentions since they became sworn brothers. Chapter 303. Under Chu Xiu's incessant provocation, the rift between the Jiangdong's 5 heroes was getting bigger and bigger. Even Qiu Dongmao, who was at the back, was shocked when he heard that. In Eastern Qi, the Jiangdong's 5 heroes were quite famous, and all of them were positive. Some people even claimed that if one of the Jiangdong's 5 heroes could step into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm and combine with the connections that the Jiangdong's 5 heroes had accumulated over the years, it would become a community of Eastern Qi. Unfortunately, the people in Jianghu would not live to see that day. Every word that Chu Xiu said was like the tip of a knife, stabbing into the hearts of the people present. The rift could no longer be mended. At this time, LV Tong closed his eyes. He seemed to have mentally prepared himself for something and said to Qing Buji in a decisive tone, "Big brother, you saved my life. When I was in the Blue Dragon Society, I never felt like a human. I only regarded myself as a sword, a killing machine without feelings. It was not until I met you that I knew what a human was. The hegemon sword villa was destroyed by the Azure Dragon Society, and your father was also killed by me. Chu Xiu wasn't wrong about this. Since it has happened, I can only compensate with my life. I can also help you get rid of all the obstacles behind you before committing suicide. In the next life, we will be brothers again." As soon as he finished speaking, the blood avoidance sword in LV Tong's hand emitted a hazy blood-red light. Even half of his body was dyed blood-red. LV Tong chose to burn his blood essence as soon as he arrived. What shocked everyone was that LV Tong did not attack Chu Xiu. Instead, he chose to kill Dong Xianyi with his sword. Only then did everyone understand what LV Tong meant by the obstacle. The obstacle was not Chu Xiu, but Dong Xianyi. LV Tong was an extreme and stubborn person. Sometimes, even Qing Buji could not stop him. In LV Tong's opinion, Dong Xianyi was not a mole and was ready to die. Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingxing were weak, so it did not matter even if they were moles. Moreover, after this incident, they would no longer have anything to do with the Jiangdong's 5 heroes. Therefore, from this perspective, Dong Xianyi, whose ambition had been exposed by Chu Xiu, was the biggest threat to Qing Buji. Moreover, Dong Xianyi had previously revealed his restlessness and ambition. At that moment, LV Tong had made a decision to kill Dong Xianyi. If Dong Xianyi died, it would be fine, but if he did not, he would commit suicide on the spot and give his life to his brother. Qing Buji's expression suddenly changed when he saw this, and he shouted, "No." Unfortunately, Lu Tong was a stubborn man. Once he made up his mind, even Qing Buhui could not persuade him, let alone Lu Tong, who was ready to die. Qing Dong Xiu and wanted to stop LV Tong. To be honest, Qing Buji did have mixed feelings when he found out that LV Tong was the person who killed his father. However, Qing Buji was broad-minded. He quickly figured out the crux of the matter. The Blue Dragon Society was an assassin organization. All the assassins in the Blue Dragon Society were their employers' swords and knives. They were emotionless killing machines. His real enemy was the person who hired the Blue Dragon Society to kill him, not LV Tong. Even if LV Tong did not make a move, the Blue Dragon Society would have sent other assassins to destroy his hegemon sword villa. Therefore, this could only be a coincidence and a misunderstanding. However, Qingbuji had accepted it, but LV Tong did not. He wanted to use his own life to kill Qingbuji. Why did he have to do that? However, just as Qingbuhui was about to make a move, Chu Xiu's figure had already appeared in front of Qingbuhui. He said expressionlessly, "Great hero Cheng, the show has just begun. I can't let you interrupt it. Right now, your opponent is me. Get lost." Qingbuji yelled. His eyes were bloodshot. His killing intent was surging. He had made an enemy of Chu Xiu to protect Xiu Dongmao. To put it in a more grandiose way, it was for his own beliefs. Now, he really wanted to kill Chu Xiu. After Chu Xiu's words, the Jiangdong 5 heroes had completely broken off. Even if they did not die today, they would never be able to go back to the past. Moreover, it was also because of Chu Xiu that his third brother wanted to fight with his second brother. This was something that Qingbuhui absolutely could not tolerate. Even if Dong Xianyi was ambitious, Qingbuji did not want to lose the brotherly relationship between them as long as he did not make a move. However, after Chu Xiu's casual words, he caused the brothers to kill each other and completely break off their relationship. At this moment, Qingbuji really wanted to kill Chu Xiu. The light Yu heavy sword exploded with boundless might, causing a powerful sonic boom to resound through the air. The heavy sword slashed towards Chu Xiu, bringing with it an unparalleled might. In the past, when facing Qingbuji, Chu Xiu had actually held back a little. However, this time, Chu Xiu also wanted to kill. The show had begun. Since the Jiangdong 5 heroes were determined to stop him, Chu Xiu would not be lenient. In fact, Chu Xiu admired people like Qingbuji. Unfortunately, he would never be a person like Qingbuji. Moreover, admiring him didn't mean that Chu Xiu would be merciful. Just as Qingbuji made his move, Chu Xiu blasted out the Wisdom Fist seal. It covered heaven and earth and sealed off the space. Qingbuji's heavy sword struggled to break through the big net of Gang Qi created by the Wisdom Fist seal. However, its speed was extremely slow. At the same time, the heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand became extremely evil. The powerful demonic aura merged with the scarlet blood divine power and intertwined with each other. He slashed out a strange and evil devil blade of Avicii. However, this time, Chu Xiu did not use the powerful blade momentum. Instead, he chose to absorb the demonic aura from the devil blade of Avicii into his body. It turned into a strange and evil blade momentum and slashed toward Qingbuji. During the previous fight, Chu Xiu was not only training his realm, but also familiarizing himself with Qingbuji's martial arts route. In reality, the martial arts that Qingbuji grasped were not very strong. Whether it was his inner force or his techniques, they could only be considered ordinary. After all, the hegemon sword villa that he came from was only a small village. All these years, Qingbuji did not take on a master, nor did he choose to rely on other forces. His strength was obtained through killing in the Jianghu. In a simple and direct manner, he used his strength to break through everything. On the other hand, Chu Xiu's martial arts were much more complicated than Qingbuji's. It could be said to be strange and ever-changing. When it needed to be overbearing, it would be overbearing. When it needed to be evil, it would naturally be incomparably evil. Before the Buddhist light created by the Wisdom Fist seal dissipated, Chu Xiu's devil blade of Avicii had already slashed over with blood-colored Gang Qi. The blade momentum was strange and ever-changing. When the two combined, it actually gave off an extremely mystical feeling. Qingbuji's face was filled with murderous intent. The light mountain sword in his hand exploded with a dazzling light. The heavy sword's blade seemed to weigh thousands of kilograms. It was as if he was going head-on against Chu Xiu, disregarding the consumption of his own inner force to fight head-on. Under the so-called pure power, whether it was the Wisdom Fist Seal spatial seal or the Devil Chi drawn by the Devil Blade of Avicii, they all shattered. Under this series of attacks, although Chu Xiu's attacks were all broken, in reality, Qing Buji was the one who exhausted the most. At this moment, he was also the most anxious because Dong Xiangyi and LV Tong had already started fighting. LV Tong was truly not afraid of death. Or rather, he was already prepared to die for Qing Buji. Therefore, when he fought with Dong Xiangyi, he used almost all his strength to attack. He actually managed to force Dong Xiangyi, who was stronger than him, to retreat step by step. He did not dare to fight head-on. After all, LV Tong had the will to die, but he, Dong Xiangyi, did not. Dong Xiangyi blocked LV Tong as he shouted, "Fourth brother. Fifth sister. Third brother has gone crazy. Come and help me." There was a hint of struggle in Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing's eyes, but neither of them moved. Wu Tiandong did not move because he was angry with both of them. Now that he saw them fighting to the death, Wu Tiandong even felt a little happy. Naturally, he would not come. Moreover, LV Tong had already started to fight desperately. If he rashly made a move, it was very likely that he would be killed by the angry LV Tong. The same was true for Lu Qingqing. She had already lost enough face today, and she did not want to stand out and embarrass herself at this time. Moreover, even if she was shameless, it would be useless for her to go forward with her strength. Moreover, she thought more than Wu Tiandong. Now that her suspicions had appeared, Chu Xiu had also pointed out Dong Xiangyi's thoughts. Although there was no evidence, it was obvious that Dong Xiangyi was also ambitious. Eldest brother would definitely not kill Dong Xiangyi. Wouldn't it be better to let LV Tong do it now? Not only would he get rid of one person, he could also make the other person bear all the blame, and he would become a tragic hero. This could be said to be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. Of course, in reality, Qing Buhui's thoughts were not as complicated as Lu Qingqing thought. The only thing he wanted now was to save Dong Xiangyi and calm LV Tong down. Therefore, when Chu Xiu stuck close to him to stop him, Qing Buhui burned his blood essence in anger. In an instant, the Qingyue was covered by the crimson blood flame. The heavens are vigorous, so a gentleman should constantly strive to improve himself. The earth is Kuan, so a gentleman should be virtuous. Qing Buhui's sword momentum was not agile, but only steady and domineering. As the sword fell, Chu Xiu's devil chi suddenly shattered. Before the sword fell to the ground, the entire ground had already been shaken by Qing Buhui's blow, leaving a deep sword mark. The internal binding seal exploded, and Chu Xiu's figure quickly retreated. However, at this time, Qing Buhui had already made up his mind to kill Chu Xiu and had even burned his blood essence. How could he let Chu Xiu escape so easily? He spat out a mouthful of blood on his Qingyue, and the dark red blood condensed into a strange rune, causing his Qingyue sword to explode with a tremendous force. As the sword fell, everything around it was drawn by this sword, forming a huge gang chi storm around Qing Buhui. This was Qing Buhui's trump card, and also the martial art technique that he did not want to use the most. It was a secret technique of the devil path, the Kuan symbol sword technique. Chapter 304. The origins of Qing Buhui's martial arts were very complicated. He mainly cultivated some simple inner force and sword techniques that were passed down from his ancestors in the hegemon sword villa. Although they were ordinary, he relied on his great willpower to cultivate to his current level. He was even able to contend against Chu Xiu, who had a full set of high-grade techniques. However, this did not mean that Qing Buhui did not have any other trump cards other than these basic techniques. The Kuan symbol sword technique was one of them. Qing Buhui had been chivalrous all these years and killed many villains. He had also obtained many powerful demonic secret techniques from them. However, Qing Buhui did not choose to cultivate any of them. This was because most of the techniques that these villains cultivated were incomparably evil. It was too different from Qing Buhui's martial arts, so it was not suitable for him to cultivate even if he wanted to. However, the Kun symbol sword technique was a famous demonic secret technique in the past. It was a part of the 8 extreme demonic book. He only needed to use his blood essence to activate it, so he did not need to pay any other price. This was also the only demonic technique that Qingbuhui had cultivated all these years. It was his true trump card. With the support of the Kun symbol sword technique, Qingbuhui, who was originally very powerful, became even more ferocious and violent. Under the endless astral energy storm, even the ground was swept into a mess. Although Chu Xiu had the internal binding seal in his hand, the surrounding astral energy was constantly pulling him back, forcibly pulling him back. Within the astral energy storm, Qingbuhui's eyes revealed a surging murderous intent. This was the second time in so many years that he wanted to kill someone so much. The first time was when he learned that the hegemon sword villa had been destroyed. At that time, he wanted to find the culprit and kill him. Of course, the person that Qingbuhui wanted to kill at that time was not Lu Tong, but the person who instigated the Blue Dragon Society to destroy his hegemon sword villa. Now, the person that Qingbuhui wanted to kill was Chu Xiu, the Chu Xiu who had destroyed the Jiangdong 5 heroes. Against Qingbuhui's sword, Chu Xiu sheathed his saber and formed a seal. However, the seal he formed this time was incomparably complicated and took the longest time. When Qingbuhui's sword that brought along a boundless Gang Qi storm arrived before him, his seal was only just completed. At the same time, when the seal landed, it also exploded with a supreme divine light. 5 different colors of light constantly appeared in Chu Xiu's hands. They were connected head to tail like a wheel, endlessly multiplying. Zai word technique, sun will seal. 5 elements, attack must counter. Wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. 5 different types of attacks were unleashed at the same time. The power of the 5 elements reinforced and restrained each other. It was like the great sun will was rotating. This was the sun will seal. Among them, the Aquarius seal and the sun will seal were the most exhausting ones. Originally, Chu Xiu did not want to use the sun will seal now. Originally, Chu Xiu didn't want to use the sun will seal right now, because the most suitable time to use the sun will seal was the 5 Qis origin realm. At that time, the 5 elements would circulate, and the 5 Qis would become one. When using the sun will seal, there would be almost no backlash. However, facing Qingbuhui's Kun word technique, Chu Xiu had no way of dealing with the extreme power. He could only use an equally powerful force to block it. This was also the martial Dao that Qingbuhui had always adhered to. There were no miraculous transformations, only pure power to crush everything. The 5-colored wheel of light transformed and clashed with Qingbuhui's sword. Instantly, an earth-shattering sound was heard. Countless earth qi exploded in the surroundings, tearing the ground apart and causing countless gravel to fly. In the middle of the storm, the 5 elements in Chu Xiu's fist seal continued to spiral and collapse. Even if his inner force was raised to the extreme, it was of no use. Chu Xiu could only use the internal lion seal to suppress himself. Only then could he withstand the powerful force. However, his body was forced to retreat more than 10 steps. Even his arms were trembling. Traces of blood appeared and dyed Chu Xiu's arms red. The collision between the sun will seal and the Kun word technique was too powerful. It was so powerful that even Chu Xiu's body could not withstand it. A strand of blood flowed out from Chu Xiu's mouth, but he only casually wiped it off. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he looked at Qingbuhui, who was in the middle of the storm. That was because Qingbuhui's injuries were more serious than his. In a battle between the two, the one who risked his life first would lose. Qingbuhui was anxious and risked his life, but he did not risk his life to kill Chu Xiu. Therefore, the one who died was him. The dust and earth qi dissipated. Qingbuhui's majestic figure was swaying and his face was extremely pale. Although the Kun word technique was based on the 8 extremities force, it was also a demonic technique. It was a secret technique that burned one's blood essence to fight for one's life. The backlash was much more severe than Chu Xiu's sun will seal. Raising the light mountain sword in his hand, Qingbuji gritted his teeth and wanted to attack again. However, at this time, he realized that Lu Tong had actually forced Dong Xiangyi to his limits. In the end, Lu Tong ignited his blood essence, causing both his body and the blood avoidance sword in his hand to be suffused with a demonic blood-red color. With a desperate attack, he actually killed Dong Xiangyi. No one had expected this to happen. Although the 5 heroes of the River East had sworn an oath based on their age, it also represented their strength. Dong Xiangyi was ranked second, and his strength was also second. He was slightly ahead of LV Tong. However, he died in the hands of LV Tong. Even Dong Xiangyi himself could not believe this result. Dong Xiangyi regretted not agreeing to Chu Xiu's condition and joining forces with him to kill Qingbuhui and the others. Dong Xiangyi finally realized that he was still selfish. Compared to his brothers' lives, he valued his own life and interests more. Unfortunately, he did not have a second chance. Chu Xiu gave him a chance, but he did not grasp it. He could not blame anyone else. Second brother. Qingbuhui let out a loud roar. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with sorrow. Even though Dong Xiangyi was ambitious and had his own thoughts, Dong Xiangyi was still his brother for many years. They had fought side by side and supported each other countless times. However, Dong Xiangyi had died in the hands of his own people. This was an outcome that Qingbuhui could not accept. However, at this moment, Chu Xiu used the extreme speed of the internal binding seal and arrived in front of Qingbuhui in an instant. The demonic aura on the heavenly demon dance soared into the sky and directly slashed down with great power. Qingbuhui subconsciously blocked with his sword in sorrow. However, there were ripples in Chu Xiu's eyes. His eyes instantly became like an abyss, pulling Qingbuhui's mind and immersing him in them. He kept replaying the scene of Dong Xiangyi's death. The soul-shifting technique of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth. Under normal circumstances, when facing an enemy like Qingbuhui, the effect of the great art of extinguishing heaven and earth and soul-shifting was limited or even ineffective. This was because Qingbuhui was stronger than Chu Xiu and his state of mind was also extremely strong. There was no loophole at all. Now that Dong Xiangyi had just been killed, it could be said that this was the most unacceptable thing to Qingbuhui. Therefore, Chu Xiu used this to pull Qingbuhui's mental strength into it. Although Qingbuhui reacted almost immediately and wanted to break free, it was already too late. The heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand had already fallen. It cut open his heavy sword and left a hideous knife mark on Qingbuhui's chest. If Qingbuhui's reaction was not fast enough, Chu Xiu's knife would have completely taken his life. The demonic aura entered his body and Qingbuhui spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured at this moment. While resisting Chu Xiu, Qingbuhui shouted at Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing, fourth brother. Fifth sister. The 5 of us have been roaming the martial world together for so long. Let's forget about our past grievances. This time, I beg of you. Send Master Qiu to Black Glaze City. The reputation of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong will still be there. Even in the underworld, I, Qingbuhui, will not live up to the name of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Chu Xiu continuously slashed with the demonic saber in his hand as he shook his head and said, "Why do you have to do this? Disregarding your own life for the sake of other people's lives. Is it worth sacrificing so much for a piece of trash who deceived you?" The Qingyue in Qingbuhui's hand had already begun to crack from the continuous slashes, but Qingbuhui still resisted and said in a hoarse voice, "It's too tiring for people to only care about their own interests in life. The 5 of us owe our benefactor a favor in the past, and now we have to return it. Even if what we have to pay is several times or even dozens of times more than the favor, we still have to return it. Let's not talk about chivalry, we just want to have a clear conscience." Chu Xiu shook his head. He really couldn't understand a person like Qingbuhui. He was a determined person, but he was also a stubborn person. Among those who achieved great things, at least 80% of them had this kind of trait. However, the other 20% of luck was extremely important. Chu Kuanga had succeeded in the past, so he became a hero respected by millions. Now, it was obvious that Qingbuhui had failed. Chu Xiu coldly said to Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing, "I've given each of you a chance. Now, I'll give you one last chance. Capture Qiu Dongmao and hand him over to me after I kill Qingbuhui. You can live, and you can live very well. Otherwise, I'll send all of you to the underworld to become sworn brothers." Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing looked at each other, and both of them showed signs of struggle in their eyes. It would be useless for them to save Qingbuhui now. It would be no different from sending themselves to their deaths. Chu Xiu's strength had already exceeded their imagination. He was an existence that completely surpassed the three-flower realm. They would only be sending themselves to their deaths if they went. However, if they had to choose to stand on Chu Xiu's side and drag out an ignoble existence, they would not be able to do such a thing. Although Wu Tiandong resented Qingbuhui and the others, he had still been brothers with Qingbuhui for so many years. Others aside, at least Qingbuhui had taught him many things. It was the same for Lu Qingqing. Back then, Qingbuhui was the one who saved her. Even if Lu Qingqing wanted to find a safe way out, they could not just let her betray Qingbuhui. Therefore, the two of them looked at each other, gritted their teeth, and immediately carried Qiu Dongmao away. They did not want to die, nor did they want to betray Qingbuhui. There was only one choice left for them, and that was to escape. Chapter 305. Seeing that Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing did not stand on Chu Xiu's side and instead listened to him and escaped with their men, Qingbuhui's eyes revealed a trace of gratification. Although the two of them didn't choose to die with him, at least they didn't betray him, and that was enough. Qingbuhui laughed heartily as he looked at Chu Xiu. "Among my brothers, none of them will be your spy." It was only now that Qingbuhui was certain that Chu Xiu had been lying to them from the beginning. If no one was a spy, then no one would betray him. He could accept death, but he could not accept the betrayal of his brothers. However, Qingbuhui did not know that Chu Xiu had never intended to incite the other four to become his spy from the beginning. Even Wu Tiandong, who was the most immature among them, and Lu Qingqing, who no longer wanted to roam the pugilistic world, had been friends with Qingbuhui and the others for many years. If Chu Xiu could so easily incite them to work for him, then the relationship between the five heroes of Jiangdong would be too fragile. What Chu Xiu wanted to do was to make them suspect each other. Even if there were no spies, this suspicion would turn into one. Looking at Qingbuhui, Chu Xiu said expressionlessly, So you can die contentedly? Hero Cheng, I'm here to send you on your way today." As soon as he finished speaking, the heavenly demon dance in Chu Xiu's hand exploded with a dazzling blood-red light. At the same time, countless demonic and blood-red qi intertwined to form an extremely strange blade aura. The heavenly demon dance had its own demonic qi, and Chu Xiu's blood-refined divine power was also an extremely evil type of power. The combination of the two produced an extremely evil and terrifying power. Qingbuhui's eyes revealed a hint of death, but he still raised the heavy sword in his hand. As long as he could hold on for another 15 minutes, Wu Tiandong and the others would have another 15 minutes to live. However, at this moment, the previously exhausted Lu Tong suddenly exploded with the last of his strength and leaped in front of Qingbuhui. He shouted, "Big brother! Let's go!" Blood-colored demonic qi rained down, and Lu Tong, who could no longer lift his sword, was directly cut into two by Chu Xiu's saber. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. For LV Tong, he had achieved what he wanted. He had killed Dong Xiangyi, the traitor, in his eyes, and he had also blocked Chu Xiu's saber for Qingbuhui. In this life, they were not fated to be brothers again. They could only wait for their next life. Third brother. Qingbuhui roared with bloodshot eyes and caught Lu Tong's corpse in a frenzy. After the five of them became sworn brothers, even if Qingbuhui tried his best to be fair, there was still some distance between them. LV Tong was the first person he had saved, so naturally, she was the one he had spent the longest time with. After so many years, Qing Buhui had come to the conclusion that no matter who betrayed him, LV Tong would never betray him. In the past, Qing Buhui might have been willing to sacrifice himself and talk about faith and morality with Chu Xiu. However, now that he had seen LV Tong die in front of him, Qing Buhui was truly regretful. He regretted everything he had persevered for, and he questioned whether everything he had persevered for was worth it. Could it be that before he could figure it out, Chu Xiu's eerie saber that carried the demonic chi of Avicenaraka had already fallen? Your brother risked his life to fight for this opportunity for you, but you didn't cherish it. What a waste. Chu Xiu's voice slowly faded, and the saber's momentum also fell with a loud bang. Qing Buhui subconsciously raised the light mountain sword in his hand to block. However, although his light mountain sword was a 6th transformation precious weapon, it was no match for the heavenly demon dance, which had the foundation of a divine weapon. After a series of collisions, the light mountain sword was already badly damaged, and in the end, it was shattered by Chu Xiu's saber. The light mountain sword was Qing Buhui's only hope after the destruction of the hegemon sword villa. Now that the light mountain sword was shattered by Chu Xiu's saber, Qing Buhui felt that there was no meaning in living anymore. The protective aura around his body was easily shattered by Chu Xiu, and he was also easily killed by Chu Xiu's saber. Looking at Qing Buhui's corpse on the ground, Chu Xiu paused for a moment, and he suddenly felt a little emotional in his heart. After roaming the Jianghu for so many years, the memories of his soul from his previous life and this life had already perfectly fused together, and it had also changed Chu Xiu's mentality a lot. Just like how others evaluated Chu Xiu, he was bold and decisive, and at the same time, greedy and self-interested. It could be said that for his own benefit, for his own path, Chu Xiu dared to do anything, by hook or by crook. On the other hand, Qing Buhui was the exact opposite of Chu Xiu. He could be said to be a true chivalrous man, and he did not owe anyone anything when it came to morality. Even that time with Lu Qingqing, he did not take the initiative. What was good, and what was evil? In the eyes of most people, Qing Buhui and the other Jiangdong 5 heroes were good, and he, Chu Xiu, was evil. However, in Chu Xiu's opinion, the living was the truth. As for the dead, it wasn't certain what it was. In the past, when the Kunlun devil cult was at its peak, even the self-proclaimed righteous disciples had to respectfully address the devil envoys of the Kunlun devil cult as Lord's sacred envoy, when they saw them. In the end, after Dugu Weiwa went missing after his battle with Ning Xuanji, the Kunlun demon sect fell apart in just a short span of 10 years. After a few hundred years had passed, only the die-hard members of the phaseless demon sect would continue to address the Kunlun demon sect as the saint sect. The others would spit out a mouthful of saliva in disdain, scolding them as demons of the demon sect. None of them could recall how their ancestor had fawned over the Kunlun demon sect when he addressed them as the saint envoy. Therefore, in the pugilistic world, the so-called righteous and evil were not eternal. Only power was the only truth. Although his current body was the cult master of the devil cult in the original plot, the plot had changed greatly. Even Chu Xiu himself did not know whether Chu Xiu would walk the path of evil in the future. However, it did not matter anymore. In the past, Chu Xiu might have been conflicted about this, but now, Chu Xiu had thought it through. When he truly reached the peak, the so-called righteous and evil would only be a matter of a word from him. The death of Qing Buhui, the righteous hero, made Chu Xiu's state of mind a lot clearer. Unfortunately, Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing still had to die. This was also the way Chu Xiu had always done things. Either he did nothing, or he went to the extreme. Even if Qing Buhui really made Chu Xiu admire him, as long as he stood in his way, he would still die. Throwing a healing elixir into his mouth, Chu Xiu did not even carefully refine it before he chased after them. Among the Jiangdong 5, only Qing Buhui, Dong Xiangyi, and Lu Tong could pose a real threat to Chu Xiu. Now that they were all dead, it was only a matter of time before Chu Xiu wanted to kill them. At this time, in the dense forest, Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingqing were fleeing with Qiu Dongmao, not daring to look back at all. Lu Qingqing's face was still filled with fear, while Wu Tiandong's face was livid and he did not say a word. What had happened in the past few days was like a nightmare. A few days ago, they were still valiant and respected by the people of pugilistic world. The Jiangdong Five had quite a reputation in Eastern Qi. But a few days later, they had already broken up with each other and killed each other. The ugly emotions in human nature had erupted in an instant, completely destroying the five of them. Dong Xiangyi was dead, and Lu Tong was almost dead as well. Although Wu Tiandong did not see the results, he knew that his elder brother was most likely in danger. At this time, Wu Tiandong was also regretting his narrow-mindedness and falling out with his elder brother and the others. He was also the instigator of this matter. At this time, Qiu Dongmao, who was being carried on Wu Tiandong's back, felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. He hurriedly said, "Young hero Wu, Miss Lu, don't worry. When you send me to Black Glazed City, I will definitely let His Highness take action and avenge Master Cheng and the others. Also, the two of you will definitely be rewarded by His Highness." Hearing this, Lu Qingqing was a little moved, but Wu Tiandong shouted angrily, "Shut up. It's all because of you. If it weren't for you, how would we, the Jiangdong Five, end up like this?" Hearing this, Qiu Dongmao shrank his neck and immediately did not dare to speak. At this time, Chu Xiu's voice came from behind Wu Tiandong and the others. "TSK, it's rare for you to think things through now, but unfortunately, it's too late. This good-for-nothing has been lying to you all this time. Do you really think that you're protecting the only son of your benefactor? He's more like an enemy. Moreover, with his current value, will the Crown Prince avenge him? It's probably impossible for the Crown Prince to even see him. Qiu Dongmao is just a pawn in the Crown Prince's hands, but now that the game is over, what's the use of having him as a pawn? Therefore, this Qiu Dongmao is just a good-for-nothing." Seeing Chu Xiu's figure attack from behind, Wu Tiandong and the others immediately turned pale. Since Chu Xiu had already rushed over, there was no need to say what kind of ending Qing Buhui would end up with. Thinking of this, Wu Tiandong's eyes revealed a look of grief. Previously, because of Lu Qingqing's matter, he did indeed have some resentment towards Qing Buhui and the others. But now, they were all dead. Especially when he thought of his elder brother, Qing Buhui, who was like a father to him and had always helped him when he first started out, was also dead. Wu Tiandong felt as if his heart was being pierced by needles. He was already somewhat regretful now. He regretted why he and the others had helped Qiu Dongmao, regretted why he had listened to Chu Xiu's instigation and fallen out with his elder brother and the others, regretted why he had escaped just now instead of dying together with Qing Buhui. Putting down Qiu Dongmao, Wu Tiandong pulled out the two autumn moon blades from his waist. With an angry roar, the blades around him spiraled like a hurricane and slashed wildly at Chu Xiu. At this moment, he was actually fighting with his life against Chu Xiu like a madman. A strange look flashed across Chu Xiu's eyes. "Have you thought it through now? Unfortunately, it's too late." The heavenly demon dance slashed down. Demonic qi surged and blood surged. With one slash, Wu Tiandong was sent flying while vomiting blood. With two slashes, the autumn moon blades in Wu Tiandong's hands were directly shattered. With 3 slashes, a Vichy Hell's Gate of Death opened wide. With 3 consecutive slashes, Wu Tiandong's body flew out like a rag doll. His head rolled to the side and blood gushed out along the headless body. Seeing Chu Xiu's gaze, Lu Qingqing could no longer care about her grief. Her eyes were already filled with fear. "Don't kill me. I promise you. I promise you that I will submit to the second prince." Lu Qingqing shook her head and shouted in horror. Chu Xiu shook his head and said, "It's too late. Actually, I don't really like to kill women, so I gave you 2 chances, but you didn't cherish them. Also, I lied to you about one thing. Actually, I'm not familiar with the second prince." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's eyes were like 2 deep pools. He unleashed the great art of extinguishing heaven and destroying earth and soul transfer to the extreme. Lu Qingqing, who was already on the verge of a mental breakdown, was instantly pulled into that boundless abyss. When she regained consciousness again, the demonic qi and blood condensed into blades had completely pierced through her body. Chapter 306. With the deaths of Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingxing, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong had completely become a legend. Apart from Chu Xiu, the only person who had caused the destruction of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong was Qiu Dongmao. If Chu Xiu were to evaluate Qiu Dongmao, he would only be able to say that he was a good-for-nothing. At most, he was a good-for-nothing who was clever. In all fairness, Qiu Zhenxing had indeed been a little unfair to him. Just because of an oath, he had labeled Qiu Dongmao as an illegitimate son and thrown him to Shanyang. However, Qiu Dongmao had also failed to live up to expectations. Qiu Zhenxing could not give him these things, so did he not want to fight for them himself? If Chu Xiu had been in Qiu Dongmao's position, he would have definitely exposed his identity first and then used Qiu Zhenxing's reputation to develop his own power. As for whether he would fall out with Qiu Zhenxing, how could he care so much at this moment? However, Qiu Dongmao had endured for more than 20 years without making a move. It was not until the crown prince sent someone to look for him that he realized that his opportunity had come. To be honest, Qiu Dongmao was indeed very tolerant. Even Qiu Zhenxing had never suspected that this obedient illegitimate son of his would want to harm him and have such sinister thoughts. Unfortunately, Qiu Dongmao was wrong about one thing. He thought that this was an opportunity, but he failed to see that he, Qiu Dongmao, was actually just a small chess piece in this game. In this game of chess, the crown prince and the second prince were the players, while Qiu Dongmao, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, and the others were all chess pieces. Jiang Wenyuan was also a chess piece, but he thought that he was also a player. In the end, he failed and was thrown out of the chessboard. As for Chu Xiu, he was neither a chess piece nor a player. He was just an outsider, but he had relied on his own strength to fight his way into the chessboard and snatched some chess pieces and benefits. Qiu Dongmao looked terrified as he looked at Chu Xiu. He said in a low voice, "Official Chu, what do you want to ask?" "I will tell you everything I know. I only ask that you do not hand me over to the second prince. Please do not kill me." Chu Xiu patted Qiu Dongmao's shoulder and said calmly, "I told you, I'm not that close to the second prince, and I don't plan to hand you over to him. It's just that you're too smart. Even if I ask you, you won't tell me the truth. Tell me that I'd rather take it myself." Before Qiu Dongmao could react, Chu Xiu's eyes had already turned into a bottomless abyss, pulling Qiu Dongmao into it. Chu Xiu had already cultivated the great technique of extinguishing the skies and destroying the earth's soul transfer to a profound degree. It might not be as overbearing as Xiahou clan's imperial spirit technique when facing martial artists of the same level, but when facing martial artists of Qiu Dongmao's level, the great technique of extinguishing the skies and destroying the earth's soul transfer really had the power to transfer souls. At this time, Qiu Dongmao's body was constantly trembling. His spiritual power had been completely occupied by Chu Xiu's spiritual power, which was violently searching through his memory. There were many memory-related methods among the spiritual secret methods of Taoism and Buddhism. However, in Chu Xiu's eyes, these methods were somewhat similar to hypnosis, which made warriors involuntarily fall into it and take the initiative to say everything. Now, what Chu Xiu was doing was violently destroying Qiu Dongmao's spiritual power. Then, like raiding a house, he found everything he wanted in his spiritual power. The result was that Qiu Dongmao would completely become an idiot. The advantage was that this method would never go wrong. After a quarter of an hour, Chu Xiu had gotten what he wanted. At this time, Qiu Dongmao's face was dull, and he looked straight at Chu Xiu with listless eyes. His spiritual power had been completely destroyed by Chu Xiu. Now, he looked like an idiot. However, Chu Xiu did not choose to kill Qiu Dongmao. He was using the tiger's skin as a banner. Chu Xiu was now a member of the Guanzhong torture room. If he wanted to kill someone, there must be a reason. Even if the reason was very nonsensical, there must be one. Chu Xiu's reason had been very clear from the beginning. Qiu Dongmao was a survivor of Qiu Zhenxing's case. Although the Eastern Qi Imperial Court had said that Qiu Zhenqing's case had been closed, as a member of the Guanzhong torture room, he must find out the truth and arrest the criminal. As for the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, they had shielded Qiu Dongmao, a criminal. Whether it was intentional or not, they deserved to die. Chu Xiu took Qiu Dongmao, who had become an idiot, all the way back to Qiu Zhenqing's manor on the Pegasus Ranch in Ji State. At this time, outside Qiu Zhenqing's manor, there were only a few dragon riders imperial guards guarding the gate. Even Fang Zhenqi had left. After all, in their view, this matter had been closed. What was the point of staying here? Seeing that Chu Xiu had returned with Qiu Dongmao, the other dragon riders' imperial guards were all confused. What was going on? Chu Xiu sent Qiu Dongmao to the dragon riders' imperial guard and said, "Send this guy to Lord Fang. Tell him that he is a survivor of Qiu Zhenqing's case. The poison of July begonia in Qiu Zhenqing's body was caused by him. He wanted to kill his brother so that he could inherit the Pegasus Ranch." The dragon riders' imperial guard was stunned. "But isn't the case closed?" Chu Xiu said lightly, "Who said that there can't be a murderer after the case is closed? Give this to Lord Fang. He will know what to do." As he spoke, Chu Xiu handed a piece of paper to the dragon riders' imperial guard. On it was written the process of the crown prince sending people to Eastern Qi to meet Qiu Dongmao. Although there was no direct evidence, this kind of thing did not need evidence. The second prince only needed to know what the crown prince was doing behind the scenes. Although this matter could not cause too much harm to the crown prince, it could still make the crown prince's reputation a little worse. Qiu Dongmao relied on him, but the plan failed. He could not protect Qiu Dongmao. This matter was mainly a blow to the crown prince's reputation among his own people. Chu Xiu believed that the second prince would know what to do. As for Chu Xiu, this matter had nothing to do with him. In the eyes of outsiders, Chu Xiu spent so much effort to capture Qiu Dongmao just to do something for the second prince. In other words, he had some kind of cooperation with the second prince. Naturally, the second prince would take the blame for him. The dragon rider imperial guard took the paper. He also knew that Chu Xiu had a relationship with their general Fang Zhenqi. Now, some people in the know were also spreading that Chu Xiu was actually on the second prince's side. Therefore, he did not dare to neglect Chu Xiu. He immediately found someone to send the news of Qiu Dongmao and Fang Zhenqi to Qiu Dongmao. "Right, has Qiu Zhenqing's body been taken care of?" Chu Xiu asked. The dragon rider imperial guard replied, "Not yet. So many things have happened in the court during this period of time. Qiu Zhenqing's death has been forgotten, so it is still preserved in the room. However, the court is choosing the next person in charge of the Pegasus farm. It is estimated that Qiu Zhenqing's body will only be completely buried after the choice is made." Chu Xiu nodded and said, "That's fine. There are still some undetected clues on Qiu Zhenqing's body. I have to carefully look at it again. After returning to the Guanzhong torture room, I can report the details of this case to my superior." The dragon rider imperial guard did not suspect anything. The people in the Guanzhong torture room had seen the body countless times. Now, it was not a big deal for Chu Xiu to look at it again. Therefore, the dragon rider imperial guard directly let Chu Xiu in. He did not even follow him in to check. Chu Xiu walked into the room where the body was placed. He picked up Qiu Zhenqing's right hand, closed his fingers, and used a special clay used to forge weapon models to copy Qiu Zhenqing's entire right hand. In Qiu Dongmao's memory, Chu Xiu successfully found information about the place where Qiu Zhenqing hid his treasure. To be honest, the place where Qiu Zhenqing hid his things was quite tricky. Ordinary people would store their treasures and other things in their own homes. This was convenient for them to access, and the home was also the place with the strongest power, so it was safe enough. However, Qiu Zhenqing took a different approach. He did not hide his things in his home at all. Instead, he chose to hide them in a place near the Pegasus farm. The Pegasus farm was the largest farm in Eastern Qi. Almost 90% of Eastern Qi's warhorses were produced in the Pegasus farm. Therefore, the Pegasus Farm's defense was much stricter and safer than Qiu Zhenxing's home. Moreover, as the owner of the Pegasus Farm, Qiu Zhenxing was the only one who could enter and leave the farm at will. Hiding around the farm was much safer than hiding in his home. The key to open Qiu Zhenxing's treasure was his right hand. It was made by a master who was proficient in mechanisms that Qiu Zhenxing hired. It had to be exactly the same as his right hand to open it. If his body was destroyed after his death, no one would be able to open the treasure. After leaving Qiu Zhenxing's farm, Chu Xiu came to a small valley near the Pegasus Farm. Based on the information he obtained from Qiu Dongmao's memory, he spent some effort to find the entrance. He used the fake hand that he had copied to open the door of the mechanism. Qiu Dongmao had never been to this place before. Qiu Zhenxing had only told his illegitimate son where he hid his wealth just in case. The treasure vault was not big. It was only 6 feet in radius. After all, with Qiu Zhenxing's strength, it was impossible for him to accumulate too much even if he was the owner of the Pegasus Farm. Most of the things here were various cultivation resources such as elixirs and elixirs. There were also some strange metals used for refining weapons. There were even quite a number of gold, silver, and jewelry. It was hard to imagine that Qiu Zhenxing, who had a simple personality, would collect these things. However, Chu Xiu did not even look at these things. Instead, he rummaged through a pile of cultivation methods and secret boxes. Finally, he found the thing that he had always wanted. It was a very ordinary cultivation method. It did not even have a title on the cover. It was written on an extremely flexible paper. The words were simple and mysterious. There were also diagrams describing the heaven, earth, and man, as well as the 5 elements and 8 trigrams. At first glance, one would feel dizzy. This seemingly ordinary cultivation method had a very famous name in the future. It was called the Heaven's Sun Gazing at Air. Chapter 307. Heavens Gazing at Air, Killing While Talking. Those words were the description of the heavens gazing at air by the people of the pugilistic world in the original plot. The technique was very mystical and did not even have a specific level. Some people said it was 8 transformations, while others said it was 9 transformations. However, most people still believed that the technique could not be measured by its level and should be classified as a mystical technique. The heavens gazing at air could allow one to look inside oneself and see through the opponent's opportunity, peeking at the powerful power of the heaven, earth, and man transformation. When one cultivated it to greater mastery, the heavens gazing at air could see through the opponent's attack trajectory and various loopholes as long as the true qi in one's body moved. At the same time, one would be able to figure out a way to break it in one's mind. It could even be said that if one fought against a martial artist who had cultivated the heavens gazing at air to greater mastery, the outcome would be determined before one even made a move. It was undoubtedly a terrifying thing. However, there was no perfect technique in this world. If the heavens gazing at air was truly unsolvable, it would not be a mystical technique, but a peerless technique or even a supreme technique. The loophole of the heavens gazing at air was actually very huge. It did not have any offensive power. That's right, such a powerful technique could not cultivate inner force or martial arts techniques, so its offensive power was basically 0. When 2 martial artists fought, even if one cultivated the heavens gazing at air to greater mastery, the other party's strength would completely crush one. Even if one's saber was full of loopholes, one would not be able to block it if one did not have enough strength, let alone those loopholes. Therefore, the strength of the heavens gazing at air would always be based on one's own strength. It could only play a supporting role, which was why the technique could only be considered a mystical technique, not a peerless technique or a supreme technique. However, the true power of the heavens gazing at air was undeniable. In the original plot, Qiu Zhenxing had cultivated the heavens gazing at air and fought with a martial Dao master from the demonic path. He severely injured the master with a single move, which was enough to show the power of the heavens gazing at air. After all, Qiu Zhenxing's strength was not considered strong before. He was born in the wilderness, and his basic technique in combat strength could only be considered mediocre. Even if he was not poisoned, Mr. Lu, who was also at unity of heaven and man, could easily kill him. In the end, after cultivating the heavens gazing at air and stepping into the martial Tao master realm, he only relied on the heavens gazing at air to defeat a stronger opponent, which was enough to explain everything. After putting the technique into his bag, Chu Xiu did not let go of the other things. In fact, Qiu Zhenxing's net worth wasn't small. After all, he was the owner of the Pegasus farm. After getting these things, Chu Xiu directly crushed the inscription on Qiu Zhenxing's right hand with his true qi, and then destroyed the mechanism of the secret treasure room. Chu Qi Secret. After Qiu and heaven, Chu, he, and he, chen, chi, and qi. Qin, qi. Sun. Chu, qi. Qi, Chu Xiu frowned slightly after reading the entire Heavens Gazing at Air. Heavens Gazing at Air was so obscure that it was difficult to understand. It contained profound Daoist principles. If Chu Xiu had not cultivated Daoist methods, it would have been more difficult for him to read it. It makes sense. Qiu Zhenxing took 3 years to comprehend it. If Chu Xiu wanted to cultivate it to small success, it might take a long time. Now, it was a problem for Chu Xiu to even get started. After seeing countless experts, Chu Xiu also examined his own talent. In terms of cultivation, Chu Xiu's talent was only average. The first reason he could have such a cultivation level was because of the glazed golden silk goo, which had completely reborn Chu Xiu. After seeing countless experts, Chu Xiu examined his own talent. In terms of cultivation, Chu Xiu's talent was only average. The first reason why he could have such a cultivation level was because of the glazed golden silk goo, which had completely reborn Chu Xiu. As for the second reason, he relied on accumulating power through countless bloody battles and plundering a large number of cultivation resources to break through. Although Chu Xiu was a rogue cultivator, apart from the initial period, after Chu Xiu joined the Blue Dragon Society and the Guangzhong torture room, he did not lack cultivation resources at all. If he ran out of resources, he could just plunder them. He was no worse than the disciples of those big sections. What made Chu Xiu outstanding was actually his comprehension ability. It might have been related to the fusion of his two souls, but Chu Xiu's comprehension ability was definitely far beyond that of ordinary people. Like the fast and slow 9 words formula, Chu Xiu could cultivate it to the small success stage in a short period of time. If it was not because of his strength and fear of the technique's backlash, Chu Xiu would even dare to use the 9 words formula as one. But now, facing this heavens gazing at air, Chu Xiu really could not figure out anything. He had not even stepped into the entry level. Just like that, he stayed in the inn for a few days. Chu Xiu seemed to have gained something, but at the same time, he seemed to have gained nothing. This feeling made him very depressed, and he still could not figure out the entry level. However, Chu Xiu did not intend to continue looking. He had left the Guangzhong torture room for a long time, and it was time for him to go back and report. When that time came, he could go back to the Guangzhong torture room and cultivate in seclusion. Even with Qiu Zhenxing's talent, he could cultivate it to the small success stage in 3 years. Now, Chu Xiu did not aim for the small success stage, but only the entry level. No matter what, his progress should be much faster than Qiu Zhenxing's. However, just as he walked out of the inn, some Eastern Qi warriors in the Ji State Prefecture were looking at Chu Xiu, pointing at him and whispering about something. In short, their attitudes were not very good. Chu Xiu vaguely heard the names of the 5 heroes of Jianghu from their mouths. It seemed that the aftermath of this matter had spread out. His name in Eastern Qi seemed to be a little stinky. In fact, this was indeed the case. Just a few days after Chu Xiu went into seclusion, the news that the 5 heroes of Jianghu were killed by Chu Xiu spread out. The second prince had already spread the news that Chu Xiu wanted Qiu Dongmao because he was the murderer who poisoned Qiu Zhenxing. It was he who asked Chu Xiu to go. In secret, the second prince spread the news that Qiu Dongmao was the crown prince's man. In the end, the crown prince could not even protect his own man. This was definitely a big blow to the crown prince's reputation. This was only an open and veiled struggle in the imperial court of Eastern Qi. The people in the Jianghu were concerned about the fact that Chu Xiu had killed the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. It was understandable that Chu Xiu had killed others in Eastern Qi. Whether it was the rogue cultivators that Yan Tingting brought here, Tong Kaitai, or Shen Bai, they were not the representative figures of Eastern Qi, nor were they from the righteous path. Moreover, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were recognized as heroes by the entire Eastern Qi. Although they were rogue cultivators, they were the standard heroes of the righteous path. Now that they had died in the hands of Chu Xiu, this naturally caused some righteous people in the martial arts world of Eastern Qi to criticize them. Although Chu Xiu claimed that it was the 5 heroes of Jiangdong who obstructed Chu Xiu from handling the case and shielded Qiu Dongmao, in the eyes of most people, this was just a one-sided statement from Chu Xiu. There was no evidence. Was he trying to fool a fool? In particular, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong had been chivalrous and helped the weak over the years. Many rogue cultivators and some small forces had been helped by the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. While the forces of the orthodox martial world loathed Chu Xiu, the large number of martial art cultivators did not have a good impression of Chu Xiu. Moreover, the cause of death of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong was quite puzzling. Under normal circumstances, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were like brothers. Naturally, they should have joined forces to fight Chu Xiu. In any case, it was impossible for Chu Xiu to kill all 5 of them. In the end, when the others were cleaning up the bodies, they found that LV Tong had fought Dong Xiangyi to death first. After she was exhausted, she was killed by Chu Xiu, and Qingbuhui had also died there. This situation left everyone dumbfounded. The 5 heroes of the River East actually had internal strife? This was simply impossible in the eyes of others. However, it was true. The bodies of Wu Tiandong and Lu Qingxing were found more than 10 miles away. They were also killed by Chu Xiu, but everyone found traces of them fleeing in panic. This meant that when Qingbuhui and the others were fighting Chu Xiu, the 2 of them chose to drag out an ignoble existence and escape. This was also unacceptable. Previously, Qingbuhui and Dong Xiangyi both wanted the 5 heroes of Jiangdong to become the 5 heroes of Eastern Qi. However, one of them did it for his own ideals, while the other did it for fame. In fact, the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were not far from this goal. If one of them could step into the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, they should change their name to the 5 heroes of Eastern Qi. Therefore, in the entire land of Eastern Qi, there were many people who knew these 5 people, knew them, and had received their favors. Everyone knew that the 5 heroes of Jiangdong were like brothers. The saying, "I didn't ask to be born on the same day of the same month and year, but I asked to die on the same day of the same month and year," was not a joke to them. However, in the hands of Chu Xiu, these 5 people either fought among themselves or fled. Only God knew what they had experienced and what Chu Xiu had done. This kind of result made those who knew the process shudder with fear. The most terrifying thing was not the great power, but the unknown. There were also people who went to the wind-sweeping tower to look for Chu Xiu's previous information. They found some of Chu Xiu's experiences when he was an assassin in the Blue Dragon Society. In the past, when Chu Xiu had just joined the Azure Dragon Association, he'd utilized a psychological strategy to annihilate a large clan like the Yu clan of the Northern Mountain by himself, and he'd caused them to kill each other madly before being annihilated. His methods were evil and ruthless, and it was simply outrageous. However, at that time, people could still guess what methods Chu Xiu had used. This time, however, they really could not figure it out. However, after this incident, almost everyone in the pugilistic world of Eastern Qi labeled Chu Xiu as an evil cultivator. This person's thoughts were deep, and his methods were so cruel that no one could fathom him. Fortunately, Chu Xiu was a member of the Guanzhong torture room. Although he was not on the righteous path, he was not on the diabolical path either. Otherwise, Chu Xiu would definitely be labeled as an evil cultivator and be hunted by the righteous path of martial arts. Chapter 308. On the way from the inn to the exit of the city, Chu Xiu received a lot of disdainful looks from people, but Chu Xiu didn't care about it. I'd rather have tens of thousands of people gnash their teeth in hatred than have no one scold my name. The more people in this world who are afraid of you, the more people who scold you. By the time you reach the level of Dugu Weiwei in the past, there probably wouldn't be many people in this world who would dare to scold you. Just as all kinds of rumors emerged in the Jianghu of Eastern Qi, in the Nansung Xiahou clan, Xiahou Wujiang was lying beside a beautiful pond, surrounded by more than 10 beautiful maids fanning him with small fans, looking relaxed. But at this moment, a koi fish in the pond suddenly flew into the air, as if there was some invisible force pulling it. In the end, the koi fish exploded into a cloud of blood mist with a loud bang. At this time, Xiahou Wujiang opened his eyes and sat up from the reclining chair, but a layer of sweat seeped out of his forehead. A beautiful maid beside him immediately gently wiped Xiahou Wujiang's sweat with a towel, and then handed him a cup of elixir tea, saying softly, "Congratulations on advancing further in the spirit commanding art, young master." Xiahou Wujiang wasn't enjoying himself at this time, but cultivating the spirit commanding art of their Xiahou clan. Although a disciple of a noble family like Xiahou Wujiang didn't lack all kinds of luxuries, he didn't dare to really neglect his cultivation, or else there would be countless people waiting to take over his position in the Xiahou clan. Xiahou Wujiang took a sip of tea and said, "It's still early. The key to the spirit commanding art is to truly turn illusory into reality and condense the spirit. But I'm afraid I can only do this step when I reach the martial arts grandmaster level." The maid smiled and said, "Young master is extraordinarily talented. Others need to reach the martial arts grandmaster level, but young master can definitely do it as long as you reach the unity of heaven and man level." Xiahou Wujiang pinched the maid's smooth face and teased, "Chan, you really know how to talk. By the way, during the time I was in seclusion, how are Mo Tianlin and Luo Feiheng?" At this point, Xiahou Wujiang's eyes revealed a trace of haze. Previously, during the God Weapon Conference, he was actually defeated by Luo Feiheng and the other two. That was truly humiliating. Therefore, after the God Weapon Conference, he cultivated hard in the Nansung Xiahou clan, and at the same time, he used the power he had to find some trouble for the Luo clan and the Mo clan. He was not willing to just swallow this. Chan smiled and said, "Because Luo Feiheng entered the top 10 of the Longhu leaderboard, she was praised by many of the Luo family's disciples when she returned to the Luo family. However, some of the older generation of the Luo family's warriors thought that Luo Feiheng shouldn't have offended our Xiahou family, so they insisted on punishing her. But in the end, nothing came of it. Right now, Luo Feiheng was consolidating his cultivation in the Luo family. As for Mo Tianlin, he is the most outstanding disciple of this generation of the Mo family. The Mo family is also reluctant to punish him. Instead, they provided him with a lot of cultivation resources and let him cultivate in seclusion. They just want to reduce the number of times he goes out." Xiahou Wujiang said with a gloomy face, "Faced with the suppression of our Xiahou family, these two families have no reaction?" Chan smiled bitterly and said, "Young master, although the strength of the Mo family and the Luo family combined is not as good as our Xiahou family, they are not people we can bully at will. You used the Xiahou family's power to suppress the other two families. Although the patriarch did not object, he did not agree to use too much power. After all, we are all part of the 9 great families, and it is not good for the family to intervene too much in the fight between the younger generation." After seeing that the Mo family and the Luo family did not respond, several elders felt that this was purely a waste of power, so they went to find the patriarch and asked him to stop this behavior. Xiahou Wujiang's face darkened, and he snorted coldly, "This group of old farts." The Xiahou family did not belong to him alone. Although his father was the patriarch, the power of the Xiahou family's elders was not small. There was even an ancestor above the elders here. They had even more power, and replacing the patriarch was only a matter of a word. Xiahou Wujiang could be said to be extremely arrogant at this time. He actually publicly scolded those elders as old farts in the Xiahou family. If these words were to spread, even if Xiahou Wujiang was the patriarch's son and the number one person in the younger generation of the Xiahou family, he would still be punished. The other maids around him all lowered their heads, as if they did not hear anything. If today's matter were to spread, they could guarantee that none of them would survive. Among these maids, only Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, Chan, who reported information to him, did not react. She comforted him, "Young master, please calm down. Even if Mo Tianlin cultivated for 100 years, he would still be no match for you. You don't have to care about this kind of small fry who is destined to be trampled under your feet. And that Luo Feiheng is the same." These years, the Luo family has been declining year by year. Among the younger generation of the Luo family, besides Luo Feiheng, there is not a single person who is worthy of respect. I'm afraid that the Luo family has long had the idea of marrying Luo Feiheng. Once the time is right, the Luo family will personally send Luo Feiheng to your bed. Hearing Chan Er's words, Xiahou Wujiang's expression became a little better. He asked, "What about the Jianghu? Did anything big happen after the God Weapon Conference?" Chan thought for a moment and said, "There is indeed one big thing. That is, Chu Xiu killed the 5 freaks of Jiangdong, which caused his reputation in Eastern Qi to instantly become a curse. Recently, his reputation has not been very good." Xiahou Wujiang frowned and said, "Chu Xiu killed the 5 freaks of Jiangdong? What the hell is going on? How did Chu Xiu get involved with the 5 freaks of Jiangdong? Didn't he go back to the Guanzhong torture room?" Since the end of the God Weapon Conference, Xiahou Wujiang had gone into seclusion. Not to mention that he did not know that Chu Xiu killed the 5 freaks of Jiangdong, he did not even know that Qiu Zhenxing had died. Chan cleared her throat and told Xiahou Wujiang in detail what had happened in Eastern Qi during this period of time. After listening to her, Xiahou Wujiang's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. So many things had happened in such a short period of time. It was really exciting. The information channels of the Xiahou clan were naturally incomparable to those of other individual cultivators, so the version that Xiahou Wujiang had heard was the most comprehensive. It included the struggle between the crown prince and the second prince, Jiang Wenyuan's role in it, and the matter of Chu Xiu killing the 5 freaks of Jiangdong in the end. It could be said to be very detailed. But then Xiahou Wujiang suddenly showed a hint of a sneer and said, "Just now you said that the martial artists of Eastern Qi now have a lot of resentment against Chu Xiu?" Chan nodded and said, "Yes, young master. The 5 freaks of Jiangdong are very famous in the land of Eastern Qi. Although they are not as famous as those martial arts masters, the 5 of them have been chivalrous and helped the weak over the years, so they have made a lot of connections. When the 5 freaks of Jiangdong were not dead, these connections did not show up. But now that they are dead, these people have jumped out to complain for them, thinking that Chu Xiu simply killed them for personal resentment." Xiahou Wujiang touched his chin and said, "Find me all the information about the 5 freaks of Jiangdong. Remember, I want it to be detailed." Chan asked doubtfully, "What are you going to do, young master?" Xiahou Wujiang sneered and said, "After being in seclusion for so long, it's time to move around. Since I can't do anything to Mo Tianlin and Luo Feiheng now, I will first attack this Chu Xiu to vent my anger." In the past, during the God Weapon Conference, the person that Xiahou Wujiang hated the most was not Mo Tianlin or Luo Feiheng, but Chu Xiu. If it were not for this Chu Xiu's interference, so many things would not have happened later. Moreover, this Chu Xiu was actually on good terms with Mo Tianlin now. If he did not deal with Chu Xiu, who would he deal with? Xiahou Wujiang was not a broad-minded person. He had always been vengeful. Even if the clansmen of the Xiahou clan provoked him, they would suffer Xiahou Wujiang's fierce revenge, let alone outsiders. However, Xiahou Wujiang did not hide his narrow-mindedness and vengeance at all. With his strength and identity, it was not him who should be worried, but the person he hated. Chan was shocked when she heard this, and she hurriedly said, "Young master, this time you used the power of the clan to deal with the Luo and Mo clans, which has already made the elders of the clan very unhappy. They will not allow you to provoke Chu Xiu again. After Chu Xiu returned to the Guanzhong torture room this time, he had already become the #1 person of the younger generation of the Guanzhong torture room, and was personally rewarded by the Iron Judge, Guan Siyu. His status is different from before. If you touch Chu Xiu without reason, that is equivalent to forming a grudge with the Guanzhong torture room. This matter will not be so easily resolved. A great aristocratic clan of the level of the Nansang Xiahou clan was very cautious in every word and action. The Luo and Mo clans were both part of the 9 great aristocratic clans. Under the premise that there was no conflict of interest, the Xiahou clan did not want to easily make a move, let alone the Guanzhong torture room, which had no grudge with the Xiahou clan. Just because Xiahou Wujiang wanted to vent his anger, the Xiahou clan wanted to deal with Chu Xiu and form a grudge with the Guanzhong torture room. This was simply impossible. Did you think that you, Xiahou Wujiang, were the little celestial master Zhang Qingzhen? Moreover, even if it was Zhang Qingzhen who caused trouble like this, Mount Longhu would not allow it. The clan did not belong to you, Xiahou Wujiang, alone. Xiahou Wujiang caressed Chan Er's face and said, "Do I look like such an idiot? Don't worry, not only will I not use the power of the Xiahou clan, I won't even have to make a move myself. This time, Chu Xiu's murderous nature is too heavy. He killed people who shouldn't be killed and provoked public anger. Only a spark is needed to ignite it. I won't waste my energy to make a move. I only need to ignite it in the dark and hit him when he's down. If things go well, this Chu Xiu will not even be able to leave Eastern Qi. Even the Guanzhong torture room can only suffer a silent loss." Chan nodded in understanding. Anyway, it was fine as long as their young master was confident. Although she was the young master's personal maid, she did not dare to say too much. In less than 2 hours, Chan had found the detailed information of the 5 heroes of the River East for Xiahou Wujiang. After reading it, Xiahou Wujiang circled more than 10 names and said, "Go and invite all these people here for me. Remember, don't make it public. Just say that I want to see them." Chapter 309. The names that Xiahou Wujiang circled were either itinerant cultivators with a certain reputation in Eastern Qi, or the leaders of some small forces. They had one thing in common, and that was that they had all received favors from the Jiangdong 5 heroes. Moreover, they were quite indignant at the fact that the 5 heroes had been killed, and they cursed Chu Xiu the most fiercely. When they learned that Xiahou Wujiang was looking for them, these people were also dumbfounded. They didn't know why the most famous young hero of the Xiahou clan was looking for them. However, although they didn't know, in Eastern Qi, no one dared to disrespect the Xiahou clan. Therefore, after receiving Xiahou Wujiang's invitation, they immediately came to the Xiahou clan. In a reception room of the Xiahou clan, more than a dozen people sat facing each other, looking at each other. One of the warriors stood up and asked, "Old Master Lin, Hero Yao, you two are the most famous among us. Do you know why Xiahou Wujiang invited us here?" One of the 2 people asked was an old man in his 60s or 70s. At this time, he was Lin Nani, the master of the Lin clan in Jiangdong. Although his strength was not too high, only at the 5 Qis collecting in the origin stage, he was quite famous in Jiangdong. If some itinerant cultivators encountered any difficulties, they would visit the Lin clan. As long as Lin Nani could help them, he would never refuse. Moreover, when some young warriors of the younger generation encountered difficulties in cultivation and wanted to ask Lin Nani for help, he would also answer them in detail without hiding anything. Therefore, Lin Nani was also an elder with a good reputation in the River East. As for Hero Yao, he was a middle-aged man in his 40s. His name was Yao Leshan, and his nickname was Evil Cutter. He also had the strength of the 5 Qis collecting in the origin stage. This person was an itinerant cultivator and had traveled all over Eastern Qi. He had done a lot of chivalrous deeds, but his reputation was not as great as the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. However, among these people, he should be the most famous. Lin Nani shook his head and said, "I don't know the reason either." Yao Leshan said, "Since young Master Xiahou invited us here, there must be a reason." The dignified Xiahou clan, one of the 9 great families, wouldn't harm us out of boredom. If the Xiahou clan wanted to harm us, it would only take a word from them. As soon as Yao Leshan finished speaking, he heard Xiahou Wujiang say, "Hero Yao is right. I didn't ask you to come here to harm you." Xiahou Wujiang pushed the door open and entered. The others immediately stood up and cupped their hands respectfully. "Greetings, young Master Xiahou." Among the people present, there were martial artists who were stronger than Xiahou Wujiang at the 5 Qis origin realm, and there were also Lin Nani, who was much older than Xiahou Wujiang. However, they were all very respectful and courteous to Xiahou Wujiang. As one of the 9 great clans, the influential Nansang Xiahou clan deserved their respect. Even if Xiahou Wujiang was only a member of the younger generation of the Xiahou clan, he still had the strength to make them respect him. Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand and said, "Everyone, please take a seat. I believe everyone is also wondering why I have invited everyone here this time. In fact, I only need to mention a name, and everyone will know." Facing Chu Xiu's doubtful gaze, Xiahou Wujiang lightly spat out 2 words, "Chu Xiu." As soon as they heard this name, everyone present suddenly exploded and started cursing. "So it's this villain," Yao Leshan said with a face full of grief and indignation. "Brother Cheng and I are very good friends. A year ago, we were drinking together and learning from each other. I didn't expect that we would be separated forever now." Lin Nani sighed and said, "In the past, my grandson was naughty and mischievous. He accidentally fell into the hands of a villain, and I didn't dare to fight him head-on. It was the Jiangdong 5 heroes who killed the villain and saved my grandson. I wanted to thank them afterward, but the Jiangdong 5 heroes didn't even ask for a copper coin. Those 5 people are all good people. They are the pride of our Jiangdong prefecture, and also the righteous heroes of our Eastern Qi martial world. If they were given time, our Eastern Qi martial world might have also set up a memorial hall. It's a pity that they have all died in the hands of that villain, Chu Xiu, and have to bear the crime of shielding a murderer." Everyone present also began to denounce Chu Xiu with grief and indignation. They all had one thing in common, and that was, they were all good friends of the Jiangdong 5 heroes, or people who had received favors from them. Therefore, after the death of the Jiangdong 5 heroes, they were the fiercest, always cursing Chu Xiu in crowded places, crying out for the Jiangdong 5 heroes, and so on. The corner of Xiahou Wujiang's mouth revealed a hint of a smile as he said, "Everyone, I have the same opinion as all of you. This Chu Xiu is cruel and greedy by nature. God knows why he killed the 5 heroes of the River East. However, this matter is definitely not as simple as them shielding Qiu Dongmao. Even an idiot wouldn't believe such a clumsy excuse. To be honest, I also have a grudge against Chu Xiu, and I also admire the character of the Jiangdong 5 heroes. Therefore, I have gathered all of you here today to discuss with you how to deal with this Chu Xiu. It's best to keep him in Eastern Qi forever." As soon as he said that, everyone present stopped talking. They looked at each other and were speechless. Xiahou Wujiang's intention was obvious. He wanted to kill Chu Xiu. In fact, they also had the same idea, but none of them did it. Although they were cursing fiercely and looked like they wanted nothing more than to skin Chu Xiu alive, if they really did it, both Lin Nani and Yao Leshan would shrug. It was true that some of them had received favors from the Jiangdong 5 heroes, and it was also true that some of them were good friends of the Jiangdong 5 heroes. However, none of this was enough to make them risk their lives to fight Chu Xiu. After all, the favor was not that great. Chu Xiu's strength had been recognized by everyone after he killed Qingbuhui. Chu Xiu was indeed worthy of his ranking on the Longhu list. It was not difficult for a 3-flower realm cultivator to kill someone with 5 Qis collecting in Acupoint realm. Under such circumstances, who would dare to court death? After all, among those who had received favors from the Jiangdong 5 heroes and were on good terms with them, the strongest was only Yao Leshan, who was also at the 5 Qis collecting in Acupoint realm. His strength might not even be as strong as Qingbuhui. Even Qingbuhui had died at the hands of Chu Xiu. What was the difference between them jumping out at this time and courting death? Moreover, even if there was someone who was not afraid of death and was confident in killing Chu Xiu, they would not dare to do it. What was Chu Xiu's identity? He was not a lone cultivator, but an inspector of the Guanzhong torture room. He was the most outstanding warrior among the younger generation of Guanzhong torture room and the face of Guanzhong torture room. If they killed Chu Xiu, the Guanzhong torture room would definitely be enraged. Then, they could only prepare to be exiled. Moreover, the Guanzhong torture room was best at tracking down murderers and investigating their traces. In the hands of the Guanzhong torture room, even escaping would be a luxury for them. Therefore, for Lin Nani and the others, they could curse Chu Xiu in secret and cry out for the Jiangdong 5 heroes in public places. However, if they were really asked to jump out and fight Chu Xiu, they really did not have the guts to do so. Seeing everyone like this, Xiahou Wujiang couldn't help but sneer in his heart. These guys always talk about righteousness and loyalty, but when something really happens and they need to fight with their lives on the line, aren't they still scared? Lin Nani carefully cupped his hands at Xiahou Wujiang and said, "Young Master Xiahou, we naturally want to find Chu Xiu for revenge, but Chu Xiu is backed by the Guanzhong torture room. If we touch him, we will definitely suffer the revenge of the Guanzhong torture room. This old man is already old, and I am not afraid of risking my life to fight Chu Xiu to repay the kindness of the Jiangdong 5 heroes. However, this old man also has a family and business, and I am not alone. What if I anger the Guanzhong torture room and implicate my Lin village?" Hearing Lin Nani's words, Yao Leshan secretly cursed this old fox for speaking sinisterly. "You, Lin Nani, have a family and business, but I, Yao Leshan, am alone, deserve to fight with Chu Xiu?" But before Yao Leshan could say anything, Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand and said, "Everyone, don't worry. I don't want you to fight with Chu Xiu just like this. I just want you to take the lead, and let all the warriors in Eastern Qi find trouble with Chu Xiu." Lin Nani frowned and said, "Young Master Xiahou, what do you mean?" Xiahou Wujiang said faintly, "Chu Xiu killed the Jiangdong 5 heroes this time. The crime he gave to the Jiangdong 5 heroes is that he shielded Qiu Dongmao, a criminal. Although this reason sounds nonsensical, it is still somewhat useful, so we have to ignore this point. This matter has nothing to do with Qiu Dongmao. Chu Xiu is from Guanzhong, and before he joined the Guanzhong torture room, he was from northern Yan. But now, this Chu Xiu is so arrogant in the land of Eastern Qi. Not only did he kill people at the God Weapon Conference last time, but this time, he even dared to kill the Jiangdong 5 heroes, the heroes of the righteous martial arts of Eastern Qi. Does this Chu Xiu not take Eastern Qi seriously? Does he think that there is no one in the martial arts of Eastern Qi who can defeat him?" As soon as these words came out, Lin Nani and the others all gasped. This evil trick of Xiahou Wujiang was really ruthless. He directly changed the concept of a seemingly ordinary fight in Jianghu into a provocation and humiliation of the warriors of Eastern Qi by a foreign warrior. If this matter really got out of hand, Chu Xiu would definitely be the enemy of all the warriors of Eastern Qi. Nowadays, most of the warriors in Jianghu still attached great importance to the distinction of regions. Most of the warriors would hang their origins in front of their names, such as the Jiangdong 5 heroes. In Eastern Qi, they represented Jiangdong Commandery. And the warriors who traveled throughout the Jianghu would also hang the country they were from above their heads. Previously, when Chu Xiu, an outsider, showed off his power in Eastern Qi, in fact, it had already made many people a little unhappy. Now, what Xiahou Wujiang was doing was to raise the level of the Jiangdong 5 heroes to the level of the Jiangdong 5 heroes of Eastern Qi. By killing them, Chu Xiu was provoking the martial arts of Eastern Qi. As the warriors of Eastern Qi, are you just going to stand by and watch? Who knows, some impulsive guys might jump out and make trouble for Chu Xiu. Chapter 310. For disciples from aristocratic families like Xiahou Wujiang, unless they were born with a powerful talent like Little Celestial Master Zhang Qingjin, they were destined to go through many intrigues. An aristocratic family, even if it was a big one like the Xiahou family, could only use all its resources to cultivate one disciple, instead of distributing resources to cultivate two. In terms of talent, Xiahou Wujiang was not bad, but he was also very skilled in such secret conspiracies. Those present were all old foxes in the Jianghu. It was not difficult for them to imagine that if they really did as Xiahou Wujiang said, it would not be easy for Chu Xiu to return to the Guanzhong torture room safely. Most of the warriors in the Jianghu were actually more rational, but there were too many people, and there were always some impulsive and hot-blooded guys who would jump out to make trouble for Chu Xiu. But at this time, Xiahou Wujiang immediately said, just inciting the emotions of the warriors of Eastern Qi is too random. You have seen Chu Xiu's strength. If the idiot who jumps out first is killed by him, it is very likely that the people behind will be afraid and dare not make any more moves. A snake can't be without a head. This kind of thing must have a leader, and this leader is you. Lin Nani and the others looked at each other. After talking for so long, they still needed to make a move. But in this way, wouldn't they be in danger? But before Lin Nani and the others could find an excuse to decline, Xiahou Wujiang said impatiently, "What are you afraid of? With so many people, are you still worried that you can't defeat Chu Xiu alone? This time, you are only playing a leading role. There are other warriors of Eastern Qi who will make a move together. With so many people, one spit from each of them can drown Chu Xiu. What are you afraid of? And this time, it is also good for you. The Jiangdong 5 heroes are dead, and now so many people in the Jianghu are filled with righteous indignation. As the first ones to stand out, your reputation will be yours. Think about the reputation of the 5 heroes of the River East. If you can kill Chu Xiu and avenge the 5 heroes of the River East, your reputation will be even greater than the 5 heroes of the River East." Everyone present looked at each other, feeling a little tempted. People in Jianghu only seek fame and fortune. Even Lin Nani and Yao Leshan, who had a good reputation, only cared about fame and fortune. Qing Buhui could be chivalrous for the sake of fame and fortune, but their chivalry was built on fame and fortune. Asking them to be unafraid of death for the sake of so-called chivalry and spirit was something they would never do. However, Lin Nani was still a little hesitant. "Young Master Xiahou, what if the Guanzhong torture room still implicates us because of this? After all, as the initiators, there's a high chance that we'll be noticed by the Guanzhong torture room." Xiahou Wujiang frowned. "What are you afraid of? If the matter escalates to the level of the whole Eastern Qi, the Guanzhong torture room won't be able to do anything. Chu Xiu has gone too far and provoked public anger. Can the Guanzhong torture room teach all the warriors of Eastern Qi a lesson? Moreover, even if the Guanzhong torture room really does something to you, I'm the one who organized this matter. Can I just watch something happen to you? Or do you think that the Xiahou family is inferior to the Guanzhong torture room?" Hearing Xiahou Wujiang's promise, Lin Nani and the others hurriedly said, we dare not, we dare not. Since we have young Master Xiahou's guarantee, we can rest assured." Xiahou Wujiang waved his hand and said, "Since that's the case, then you can go. Don't worry, if anything happens, the Xiahou family will support you." Watching Lin Nani and the others leave, Xiahou Wujiang's personal maid, Chan Er, came out with a teacup and asked, "Young master, if the Guanzhong torture room really does something to them, are you really going to use the power of the Xiahou family to help them?" Xiahou Wujiang took a sip of tea lazily and said, "I'm just fooling these idiots. The old guys in the family are so noisy. Since they won't let me use the power of the Xiahou family, how can I use it? If I could use the power of the Xiahou family, why would I waste so much time talking to these idiots? Anyway, there's no proof. If the Guanzhong torture room really comes to us, let them vent their anger on the behalf of the Guanzhong torture room. The most outstanding disciple of the younger generation died halfway. No matter what, we should let them vent their anger, right?" Hearing Xiahou Wujiang's words, Chan couldn't help but sympathize with Lin Nani and the others. In the eyes of a force like the Xiahou family, Lin Nani and the others were really small and pitiful. They could only be used. If they could resist their greed and not agree to Xiahou Wujiang's request, then Xiahou Wujiang wouldn't be able to force them to kill. But once they agreed to Xiahou Wujiang's request, no matter whether Chu Xiu was dead or alive, they would be the unlucky ones. Just like the death of Qiu Jinxing this time, except for Chu Xiu, who was an outsider, most of the people were pawns. Since they were pawns, naturally, they would be worthless after they were used up. Lin Nani and the others acted very quickly. After returning to their respective forces, or finding some rogue martial artists, these people began to deliberately control the rumors, making the matter of Chu Xiu killing the 5 heroes of Jiangdong become a provocation and disdain of the martial arts world of Eastern Qi by an outsider. Although the influence of these people wasn't great, they used the banner of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong to quickly spread this kind of news to the ears of all the martial artists who were concerned about the 5 heroes of Jiangdong. Indeed, it attracted the approval of many people. There were even many people who immediately expressed their desire to teach Chu Xiu a lesson, telling him that there were people in the land of Eastern Qi, and that he couldn't act recklessly and arrogantly. Chu Xiu hadn't noticed these things yet. But after a few days, he had just arrived at a restaurant in the Yan State Mansion. As soon as he pushed the door open and entered, he felt that almost all the martial artists around him were looking at him with hostility. This situation made Chu Xiu frown. Did he know this group of people? Could it be that they had all received favors from the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, or were they all good friends of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? Chu Xiu could see from the eyes of this group of people that their hostility toward him was very deep. At the very least, it was much deeper than the martial artists in the Ji State Mansion. When they saw Chu Xiu take a seat, the martial artists in the restaurant whispered to each other for a while. Then, they all paid their bills and left in unison. The originally lively restaurant instantly became empty. Chu Xiu touched the hilt of his saber and pondered. Were the 5 heroes of Jiangdong really so famous in Eastern Qi? It seemed that he had underestimated their influence. He had attracted so many hostile gazes just because he had killed 5 of them. Reputation was something that sometimes didn't show up when you were alive, but when you were dead, many people would jump out to talk about this and that. He didn't know if they were sincere or not, or if they were just trying to make their presence known. However, Chu Xiu didn't care. He wasn't a member of Eastern Qi, so he didn't care about these so-called curses. Even if his reputation in Eastern Qi was really bad, he wouldn't care. Just as Chu Xiu's dishes were served and Chu Xiu was about to pick up his chopsticks, the door of the restaurant was suddenly pushed open. A martial artist in his 40s, dressed in white and holding a sword, walked in surrounded by people. The people beside him were the martial artists who had left earlier. The others beside the white-robed swordsman shouted, "Master Feng, this is Chu Xiu. This person killed the elites of our Eastern Qi's righteous Dao in Eastern Qi, and now he is eating and drinking so arrogantly here. He is simply too arrogant." Master Feng pushed the crowd aside, looked at Chu Xiu, and said coldly, "Chu Xiu. You committed such atrocities in Eastern Qi and killed the 5 heroes of Jiangdong, the elites of our Eastern Qi's righteous Dao. How dare you appear here in broad daylight? Do you really think that there is no one in Eastern Qi who can stop you?" I was close friends with Dong Xiangyi, one of the 5 heroes of River East. In the end, Brother Dong died tragically at your hands. Today, I will seek justice for Brother Dong. Chu Xiu, if you don't give me an explanation today, don't even think about leaving the Yan Province mansion. This Master Feng was Feng Weiming, the master of the Feng family village in the Yan prefecture. He had the strength of 5 Qis collecting in origin and was considered a prominent figure in the Yan prefecture. Legend had it that Feng Weiming's ancestors were experts of the martial Dao Grandmaster realm, and the Feng family village was also famous. Unfortunately, the later generations were not as good as the previous ones. In Feng Weiming's hands, his father died early in an accident, and Feng Weiming stepped into the 5 Qis collecting in origin with the help of the Feng family's heritage. He was already the strongest expert of this generation in the Feng family. As for his relationship with Dong Xiangyi, it was not as good as he claimed. They were just fair-weather friends. It was just that Fang Weiming unilaterally thought that he was close friends with Dong Xiangyi and bragged about his relationship with the 5 heroes of Jiangdong to others. This time, he came to cause trouble for Chu Xiu because he was indignant, but the other half was instigated by others. After all, in the eyes of the other martial artists in the Yan prefecture, didn't he always say that he was close friends with Dong Xiangyi, the second of the 5 heroes of Jiangdong? He was also close to the other 5 heroes of Jiangdong. When the incident happened, he was still scolding Chu Xiu. Now that Chu Xiu happened to pass by the Yan prefecture, it would not be right for him to back down. Therefore, Fang Weiming had no choice but to come. Anyway, there were many people in the Yan prefecture. Would Chu Xiu dare to oppose the public's anger in public? Chu Xiu didn't even raise his head as he ate. You and Dong Xiangyi are close friends? Then you should go to hell to avenge him. Dong Xiangyi was not killed by me, but by LV Tong. Fang Weiming was stunned when he heard this. It seemed that according to the traces found by others, Dong Xiangyi was really killed by LV Tong. But then Fang Weiming pointed his sword at Chu Xiu and snorted. The 5 heroes of Jiangdong are like brothers. How could they kill each other? You must have used some sinister tricks and evil methods to make them kill each other. Chu Xiu slowly swallowed a piece of beef and wiped his mouth. He suddenly raised his head and said, "Do you want an explanation from me?" Fang Weiming suddenly felt his heart skip a beat as if something bad had happened. But he still said coldly, "So what if I did?" "Well, I'll give you an explanation." As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Xiu's figure was like an arrow that had left the bow. In an instant, he had already appeared in front of Fang Weiming. You're tuning in to the Carefree Valley YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.